Chapter 1138. Hua Yunxi smiled faintly. It's nothing major. A young girl by Hua Yunxi's side blushed. She covered her mouth and smiled. The emperor has decreed a marriage between Sister Hua and His Highness Prince of Qi. The wedding will be held at the beginning of next month. When the time comes, Sister Hua will be a good princess consort Qi. Her words carried a hint of envy. Ever since the Prince Regent passed away, the emperor's health had not been very good. No one could say for sure how long he would last. Most people knew that Prince of Qi was one of the princes most likely to ascend to the throne. If that was true, then Hua Yunxi would become the mother of the nation. Is that true? Mo Xiaoyao was somewhat surprised. He had brought Han Mingwei out of the city as soon as he returned. He had no time to find out what had happened in the capital over the past half year. He glanced worriedly at Feng Zhiyao. As expected, he saw him lowering his head with a gloomy expression. In truth, Mo Xiaoyao had not been optimistic about Feng Zhiyao's feelings for Hua Yunxi from the very beginning. It was not only because of the difference in status between the two of them. Feng Zhiyao was too young, not even 13 years old. No matter how great his future was, Hua Yunxi, who was already 16 years old, could not always wait for him to become successful and famous in her boudoir. More importantly, how could Hua Yunxi believe in the feelings of a child who wasn't even 13 years old? Now that the emperor had decreed a marriage, there was no need to say anything. For the sake of the Hua clan, Hua Yunxi could not possibly have any thoughts that she should not have. Hua Yunxi smiled faintly. It is the emperor's grace. From her expression, it was clear that she did not have any joy or expectation for this marriage, nor did she have any feelings of rejection. In this world, all women lived like this. Love and affection, that was something that only existed in novels. Mo Xiaoyao smiled. Then Xiaoyao congratulates Sister Hua. Hua Yunxi smiled faintly. You're not young anymore. I heard from grandfather that your eldest brother has already chosen a good girl for you. When you return, you'll be preparing for the engagement. Mo Xiaoyao smiled casually. He really was young. He thought more about the hot-bloodedness of the battlefield and the free and easy life of the Jianghu. He was not as interested in beauties as other youths of his age. After bidding farewell to Hua Yunxi, the three of them walked out of the peach fort side by side. Han Mingwei glanced thoughtfully at Feng Zhiyao, whose gorgeous red clothes had become somewhat dull. She sighed slightly. He said softly, Brother Feng, there are plenty of fish in the sea. Gongzi Mingyu was extremely intelligent. How could not see Feng Zhiyao's feelings for Hua Yunxi? However, he still didn't know that love wasn't up to him at all. Moreover, he would not know that in the near future, he would also encounter a demonic barrier for half of his life. He would fall into an even more miserable state than Feng Zhiyao. Mo Xiaoyao sighed. He patted Feng Zhiyao on the shoulder and asked, How is it? Do you want to go fight? As a brother, Mo Xiaoyao knew that Feng Zhiyao didn't need anyone to comfort him. Feng Zhiyao rolled his eyes. Do you think I'm stupid? Even if he fought, he would still be the one getting beaten up. He was already very unlucky. He didn't want to be even more unlucky. As early as 3 months ago, when the emperor had just announced the marriage decree, Feng Zhiyao already knew. In other words, he already knew that it was impossible for him and Hua Yunxi to be together even before that. One was the legitimate daughter of a duke, the other was the illegitimate son of a merchant family. The difference between them was like heaven and earth, an insurmountable chasm. Feng Zhiyao wasn't naive. In fact, his childhood experience made him more clear-headed and mature than other youths of his age. Even he himself had never had much hope for this relationship of his. Needless to say, he was younger than her by 3 years. In her eyes, he was just a younger brother like Mo Xiaoyao. Feng Zhiyao didn't know when his feelings had changed. Perhaps it was from the first time he had seen her, or perhaps it was when he had been framed by his aunt and older brother, lying half dead on the bed, or when she had secretly sent someone to take care of him, or perhaps it was just one day his heart had suddenly moved. Mo Xiaoyao once said with a smile, Love doesn't know where it starts, but it goes deep. Feng Zhiyao couldn't help but smile bitterly. Second young master, Mo, was blessed by the heavens. Although he was his commander, he had never been troubled by love. He came and went as freely as the wind. It was impossible not to be envious. The night before Hua Yunxi and Mo Jingqi's wedding, it was raining heavily. Feng Jiao stood outside the walls of Hua Fu, lost in thought. The rain soaked his clothes and hair. Feng Jiao silently raised his eyes and looked at the dark night sky. He gritted his teeth, then jumped into the walls of Hua Fu. Feng Jiao had followed Mo Xiuyao to Hua Fu twice before, so he easily found his way to Hua Yunqi's door. It was already late at night. Hua Yunqi's room was quiet, but the light was still cold. Feng Jiao pressed his ear against the door and listened. After confirming that there was no one else inside besides Hua Yunqi, he knocked on the door. Hua Yunqi opened the door and was surprised to see Feng Jiao covered in water. "Jiao, why are you here so late? And you're covered in water? Can you not marry Prince Qi?" The youth didn't care about his sorry state at all. He stared fixedly at Hua Yunqi. Hua Yunqi was stunned. After a while, she shook her head and said, "I can't." Seeing the young man biting the corner of his lips, his handsome face cold and pale, Hua Yunqi's heart couldn't help but ache. She didn't know if it was because of the night rain or something else. She didn't have any younger siblings, so she had always doted on this youth as if he were her own younger brother. Compared to the high-spirited and carefree second young master Mo, she doted on this youth who wasn't valued by his father. He was clearly upset, but he stubbornly didn't care. "Silly child, even if I get married, I'm still your older sister. If you have time in the future, you can come visit me with Xiuyao at the Prince of Qifu." Feng Jiao stared fixedly at Hua Yunqi. At that moment, Hua Yunqi almost thought that he was about to cry. After a long time, Feng Jiao finally took out a walnut-sized luminous pearl. Under the night sky, the luminous pearl in Feng Jiao's hand glowed with a gentle purple light. It was obvious at a glance that it was priceless. "Jiao, what are you doing?" Feng Jiao stuffed the luminous pearl into Hua Yunqi's hand and said in a gruff voice, "This is a congratulatory gift for you. I won't be attending your wedding." After he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Hua Yunqi's reaction and turned to leave. Hua Yunqi held the luminous pearl in her hand and stared blankly at the youth's departing figure. Not far from Hua Yunqi, the gray-haired Duke of Hua stood under the eaves of his house. He watched as a black shadow dashed out of the courtyard and over the wall, sighing helplessly. Standing beside him was the white-robed second young master of the Prince Ding mansion, Mo Xiuyao. "Old Duke, thank you." Duke Hua sighed and said worriedly, "That child," Mo Xiuyao said, "he'll be fine. It's fine as long as old Duke doesn't blame him." Duke Hua smiled bitterly. "It's difficult to obey the imperial order. If it weren't for this, I'd rather Yunqi marry a more ordinary person." Mo Xiuyao smiled faintly, then bid farewell to Duke Hua and chased after Feng Jiao. Chapter 1139. Outside the Duke of Hua State. In the pouring rain, a disheveled youth sat in a corner, allowing the rain to mercilessly wash over his weak body. His already pale face appeared even paler in the rain. "Get up!" A handsome youth in white landed lightly not far from him, not forgetting to hold an oil paper umbrella in his hand so that he wouldn't be drenched by the rain. Compared to his clean appearance, the youth looked even more disheveled and disheveled. Mo Xiuyao laughed coldly, walked over to Feng Jiao, and squatted down. "What's the matter? You don't want to live anymore? Mind your own business." Feng Jiao impatiently closed his eyes. He was in an extremely bad mood, and even if the person in front of him was his good friend, he didn't want to bother. Mo Xiuyao laughed coldly. "Since you're half dead, why don't you just die? Maybe Sister Hua will shed a tear or two for you when she sees your pitiful state." "Mo Xiuyao, go die." Feng Jiao roared angrily and pounced towards his bad friend who was squatting in front of him. Right now, he desperately needed to vent. Since someone was asking for a beating, why wouldn't he beat him up? The angry youth was momentarily dizzy, forgetting that the person in front of him wasn't someone he could beat up just because he wanted to. Sure enough, the moment he moved, Mo Xiuyao, who was squatting in front of him, stood up and retreated a few steps. Feng Jiao immediately pounced on empty air. People in a bad mood often got angry easily. Normally, Feng Jiao would have stopped after failing to hit him, but right now, he seemed to be completely focused on Mo Xiaoyao. He stood up and swung his fist towards Mo Xiaoyao's face. Mo Xiaoyao raised his eyebrows. He dodged again, and Feng Jiao pounced again. The two of them began to fight in the rain. The only difference was that Feng Jiao was not only wet, but also covered in mud, as if he had rolled in a quagmire. On the other hand, Mo Xiaoyao's white robes fluttered in the wind. He held an umbrella in one hand. Even though it was raining heavily, not a single drop of rain could be seen on his robes. It was as if he wasn't fighting with someone, but taking a leisurely stroll in the spring rain. When Feng Jiao finally ran out of strength, Mo Xiaoyao smilingly lifted his leg and kicked him a few feet away. Looking at Feng Jiao, who was lying in the muddy water and too lazy to even crawl up, he said, "Tomorrow, this young master is going to go on an expedition to the southern border. Do you want to come along? If you want to go, then get up and follow me. If you want to die, then continue to lie down." After saying that, he didn't care whether Feng Jiao could get up or not. He turned around and left. On the muddy ground, Feng Jiao crawled on the ground, letting the rain hit his pale and handsome face. After a long time, he slowly crawled up. Looking back at a certain place in Huam Manor that was still lit in the night, he turned around and walked in the direction Mo Xiaoyao had left. 17 years later, in a small manor outside Glass City, Hua Yunqi sat alone by the window, looking at the flowers outside in a daze. Although she was already over 30 years old, the years didn't leave too many traces on her beautiful face. On the contrary, the aura of an aristocratic family and the fact that she was once the mother of a nation made her more noble than ordinary women. "Mother!" Mo Wuyo pushed open the door and came in with a smile. Hua Yunqi quickly got up and pulled her daughter, softly saying, "Why did you come out of the city? You're pregnant, so why don't you stay here?" Mo Wuyo acted spoiled and leaned against her mother, saying, "Wuyo is pregnant, but mother still isn't willing to stay in the city to take care of daughter, so daughter had to come out." "Nonsense." Hua Yunqi helplessly poked her daughter's forehead and said with a smile, "Your mother-in-law is taking good care of you. Why do you still need me? You're also a sensible child. Su family's first madam is a rare mother-in-law. So what nonsense are you talking about?" Mo Wuyo stuck out her tongue. Of course, she wasn't dissatisfied with her mother-in-law. She just wanted to make a fuss with her mother. Looking at her mother, Mo Wuyo's eyes turned and said, "That's right, mother. I just saw Uncle Fengsen outside. Why didn't he come in?" Hearing this, Hua Yunqi was stunned and said, "He's not busy. He'll naturally leave in a while." Mo Wuyo smiled with some suspicion. These past few years, she had seen Feng Jiao's every move. As a daughter, it would be a lie to say that she really wanted her mother to find her stepfather. But Mo Wuyo also knew the hardships and grievances her mother had suffered these past few years, as well as Feng Jiao's infatuation. If Feng Jiao hadn't stubbornly taken her mother out of the palace, her mother would have died long ago. Feng Jiao had long passed the age of 30, but he still insisted on going against Feng Jihuai's wishes and refused to get married. He was even more concerned about her mother's well-being. To say something a little insatiable, even Su Qingbai wasn't so attentive to her. Her mother was only in her 30s now. Her life was still very young. If possible, Mo Wuyo naturally hoped that her mother could live happily in the latter half of her life. "Mother, why don't you let Uncle Fengsen come in? We can have a good talk." Wuyo, looking at his appearance, "I'm afraid he won't leave easily," Mo Wuyo softly advised. Hua Yunqi sighed bitterly. How could she not understand Feng Jiao's feelings after all these years? But understanding was one thing. The reality was that he was one of the most trusted aides in the Prince Ding mansion, with a high position and boundless future. And she was the widow of the previous emperor. Even if she changed her name now, how could she really deceive the world? If they got together, it would not only ruin Feng Jiao's reputation, but also Mo Wuyo, the Su family, and even the Prince Ding mansion's reputation. How could Mo Wuyo not see Hua Yunqi's concerns? But she didn't know how to persuade her mother. Prince Ding and the princess consort didn't care about this, and neither did the Su family. But no matter how she persuaded her mother, she still couldn't let it go. Since mother doesn't want to see Uncle Feng-san, Wuyo will send him away. Hua Yunqi didn't comment. Mo Wuyo shook her head regretfully and turned to leave. Uncle Feng-san. Outside the door, a handsome man dressed in red was anxiously circling the courtyard. When he heard Mo Wuyo's voice, he turned around in surprise, but when he didn't see the figure he wanted to see, his eyes dimmed. She still doesn't want to see me? Feng Jiao asked in a low voice. Although he had long passed his prime, the red-clothed young Master Feng-san was still extraordinarily handsome. After experiencing the tempering of countless wars, he even had a bit of sharpness and calmness. The current young Master Feng-san was no longer the useless, hedonistic son of the Chu capital back then. He had already achieved success and fame, but he still couldn't get what he wanted most. Ever since Mo Wuyo got married, Hua Yunqi moved out of Glass City and lived in a courtyard at the foot of a mountain not far from Lishan Academy. Since then, she seemed to have retreated from the world and didn't leave the house. Recently, she didn't even want to see him. Mo Wuyo shook her head apologetically. She looked at Feng Jiao with pity. She knew her mother's personality very well. Once she made up her mind, it was hard to change it. Chapter 1140. Feng Jiao's smile was a little bitter. Mo Wuyu looked at his gloomy expression and couldn't help but feel sorry for him. Uncle Feng, why don't you go back first? Maybe after 2 days, Mother's mood will be better. Feng Jiao shook his head and said, Forget it. I'll have to trouble you to help me bring something to your mother. Mo Wuyu nodded, only to see Feng Jiao take out a walnut-sized, purple luminous pearl and place it in her hand. Mo Wuyu looked at the item in her hand and frowned, feeling a strange sense of familiarity. Very quickly, Mo Wuyu remembered that her mother indeed had a luminous pearl that was similar to this one. The only difference was that the string that her mother wore was light red, but this one was dark blue. When she was young, she had asked her mother for it, but her mother, who had always doted on her, didn't give it to her. Uncle Feng, don't worry, Wuyu will definitely bring it to you. Mo Wuyu nodded and promised. Feng Jiao squeezed out a bitter smile and said, Thank you, goodbye. Looking at Feng Jiao's bleak figure as he left, Mo Wuyu sighed deeply. He was rejected again. A black-clothed youth landed lightly on the wall, smiling as he held his chin and looked at Feng Jiao's departing figure. I would rather destroy 10 temples than regret a marriage. I really didn't expect that I would have to be a matchmaker one day. I don't know how Feng-san will repay me. He will definitely be moved to tears and be deeply grateful to me, and then swear that he will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire, right? He will try his best to restrain himself from killing you. On the wall, another youth, who was younger by 1 or 2 years, said expressionlessly, Little brother Zhiruwei, can't you have a bottom line for being ungrateful? How hard is my life to meet a cousin like you who would burn the bridge after crossing the river? Little Prince Mo complained. Su Zhiruwei's mouth twitched, and he asked gloomily, Why do I have to cross the river? Cousin, do you still remember? Digging a hole for someone to jump into and then pulling that person out, wanting them to be grateful? Did Mo Xiaobao think that everyone in the world had the same problem as him? Mo Xiaobao rubbed his nose and sighed. I don't care anymore. For the future of young Master Feng-san, let's do it. Aunt Hua. Inside the room, Hua Yunqi was staring at the night pearl that Mo Wuyo had given her. Outside the door, Mo Xiaobao's anxious voice could be heard. Without waiting for Hua Yunqi to speak, Mo Xiaobao directly barged in. Auntie Hua, have you seen Feng-san? Hua Yunqi was stunned. She looked at Mo Wuyo and said, He just left. What's wrong? He left. Xiaobao screamed in horror. Why did he leave? Where would he go? What happened? Hua Yunqi's heart tightened as she hastily asked. Mo Xiaobao's face was heavy. It's over. He must have felt that there was no business and found a place to fend for himself. Quickly, we must send someone to find him as soon as possible. Mr. Shun said that his illness can't be delayed any longer. Illness? What illness does he have? Hua Yunqi's face paled as she anxiously asked Mo Xiaobao. Standing behind her, Mo Wuyo furrowed his brows in confusion. She had just seen Feng Jiao. Although his complexion wasn't good, it didn't look like he had any illness. Mo Xiaobao weakly shook his head and said, Mr. Shun didn't say. He only said that he might not live past 3 months. Feng San just told my royal father that he wanted to leave for a period of time and then ran away. Royal father and mother are currently sending people to look for him. They told me to come over and see if he came here. Hua Yunqi's body swayed, and she almost fell to the ground. Mo Wuyo quickly supported her. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Mo Xiaobao give him a look. Hesitating for a moment, Hua Yunqi asked, Wuyo, what else did he say when he left? Mo Wuyo really couldn't bear to lie to his mother, but he also didn't want to ruin Mo Xiaobao's plan, so he could only say, nothing. Uncle Feng San only told Wuyo to give this to mother. Hua Yunqi somewhat trembled as she took out another pearl. 2 almost identical purple night pearls lay quietly in her hands, releasing a gentle and beautiful light. The same old silk ribbon, the same concentric knot, only one was light red and the other dark blue. It was clear that they were a pair. Hua Yunqi suddenly remembered that rainy night many years ago. The youth's stubborn and dim eyes and pale face. Seeing Hua Yunqi's stunned gaze, Mo Xiaobao's eyes turned, and with a trace of sobbing, he said, Feng San told royal father that he wanted to do what he wanted to do the most. Aunt Hua, do you know what Feng San wants to do the most? Where'd he go? She knew, but she chased him away. I'll go find him. Saying this, Hua Yunqi turned and rushed out. In the room behind her, Mo Xiaobao put down his hand that was covering his face. His handsome face was clean and full of smiles. Where was the trace of tears? Mo Wuyo knit his brows and stared at Mo Xiaobao. What do you want to do now? Mo Xiaobao smiled obediently and innocently. Big Sister Wuyo, don't you think they're wasting everyone's time and energy like this? What does this have to do with you? Mo Wuyo silently said in his heart. Mo Xiaobao helplessly sighed. He looked at the bright and sad sky outside the window. Last time he played with Feng San, causing Feng San to be dispirited at work during this time. His heartless royal father thought it was all his fault, so he wanted him to immediately solve all of Feng San's problems. In all honesty, even if he didn't cause trouble, Feng San wouldn't be able to deal with Aunt Hua. All right? Will this work? Mo Wuyo said with some doubt. If it's like this, Feng San will use this as a pretext to make a fuss. Then he can go die. Mo Xiaobao said expressionlessly. Forcing others to take responsibility for a mistake that wasn't their own. This was too unreasonable. At the edge of a cliff somewhere outside Glass City, Hua Yunqi asked the nearby citizens along the way. Just as she walked up the cliff, she saw Feng Jiao standing at the edge of the cliff with his back facing her. He stood in the wind as if a gust of wind could blow him down. Jiao, what are you doing? Along the way, Hua Yunqi was slightly out of breath. But seeing the red figure on the cliff, her heart instantly jumped and she didn't even dare to breathe. Feng Jiao turned around and looked at her. Big Sister Hua, why are you here? Hua Yunqi said gently. What are you doing here? If there's anything, come over first and we can talk about it slowly, okay? Feng Jiao smiled bitterly. There's nothing to talk about. I was insensible in the past and made Big Sister Hua worry. In the future, I won't do it again. Seeing his seemingly withered appearance, Hua Yunqi only felt a pain in her heart, as if someone was ruthlessly pinching it. Jiao, no matter what, let's slowly think of a way. It will get better. Can you come over first? I'm a little scared of you standing there. Feng Jiao shook his head and smiled. It's good here. Big Sister Hua, you can go back. In the future, Jiao won't bother you anymore. After saying that, Feng Jiao turned around and leaned forward slightly. Jiao! Hua Yunqi couldn't help but scream and wanted to reach out and grab him. But the place where she was standing was not close to Feng Jiao. If Feng Jiao really wanted to die, she wouldn't be able to grab him in time. Moreover, with her figure and strength, she definitely wouldn't be able to hold Feng Jiao. A sense of fear that she had never felt before spread throughout her body and mind. Jiao, didn't you say that you would take care of me? Are you going back on your words? Feng Jiao paused for a moment and slowly shook his head. In the future, I won't be able to take care of Big Sister Hua for a long time. It's okay. It'll be as long as it takes. And who can say what will happen in the future? Hua Yunqi said nervously. Feng Jiao turned around and looked at her. Big Sister Hua, are you pitying me again? Just like when we were young. Hua Yunqi shook her head and said no. Jiao, I'm sorry. I was wrong before. I was the one who cared about other people's opinions. I know that you were sincere to me. Then, what about me? Feng Jiao asked expectantly. Hua Yunqi hesitated for a moment. Holding the 2 pearls in her hand, she said firmly, I can't guarantee that. I have such thoughts now, but I want to try. Jiao, are you willing to try with me? Even if I can only say it for 3 months? Hua Yunqi nodded solemnly. After a long time, Feng Jiao finally left the cliff and walked in the direction of Hua Yunqi. Hua Yunqi's anxious heart finally relaxed. Her legs went soft, and she fell to the ground. She wasn't a woman with a strong body. All the way here, she almost relied on her willpower. Now that she saw that Feng Jiao was fine, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. She couldn't hold on any longer. Feng Jiao tapped his foot and flew to her side to catch her falling body. Big Sister Hua, no, Yunqi, are you really willing to marry me? Hua Yunqi was stunned. Looking at Feng Jiao's expectant and joyful eyes, she couldn't say anything to refuse. Finally, she nodded slightly. Really? That's great. Yunqi, I'm so happy. Feng Jiao hugged her tightly and couldn't help but laugh loudly. Mo Xiaobao and Su Jue, who followed Hua Yunqi all the way here, lazily leaned against a tree at the foot of the mountain. Mo Xiaobao's handsome face was twisted. Feng Jiao, isn't it too early to be happy? Su Jue lazily glanced at him. Shouldn't you be happy that you got what you wanted? Are you jealous? Shouldn't he first consider what to do if he doesn't die in 3 months? Mo Xiaobao gritted his teeth. This was his idea, his plan, okay? What happened to gratitude? What happened to being deeply grateful? What happened to being willing to sacrifice himself? Young Master Feng San, who was holding his beloved on the cliff, didn't have the heart to think about what to do in 3 months. He only knew that after so many years, he finally caught the beautiful figure that he once yearned for and couldn't get. Since the first time he saw her, he felt that something was missing in his heart. At this moment, it suddenly became full, warm, and full. Hua Yunqi leaned weakly against Feng Jiao's arms, without any intention of struggling. In this world, no man's feelings for her were more real than Feng Jiao's. No man could make her feel such heart-wrenching pain like Feng Jiao's. That was enough. When you know your concubine has a husband, you give your concubine a pair of pearls. When I feel your lingering love, it's tied to the red silk basket. When my concubine's house is surrounded by tall buildings, my husband holds a halberd in the light. I know your heart is like the sun and the moon. We swear to live and die together. When you shed your tears, I regret not meeting you before marriage. Chapter 1141. When Mo Xiaobao was 15 years old, after His Highness Prince Ding passed the throne to Mo Xiaobao, he brought his princess consort and the little princess who was only 6 years old and left Glass City without leaving a trace. What he left behind for Mo Xiaobao was a huge Prince Ding mansion and the largest piece of land in the world, as well as a tearful little brother who was looking for his mother and sister everywhere. There was nothing for Mo Xiaobao to worry about in the Prince Ding mansion's affairs. A year ago, he had already started to take over the Prince Ding mansion's affairs. These matters were something that would happen sooner or later. But looking at the little brat who was crying while hugging his leg, Mo Xiaobao could only sigh helplessly. He bent over and picked up the little brother, saying helplessly, "Now you know how to cry. Why didn't you let father take you with him?" Even if he had to leave one behind for him to raise, leaving Exeter behind was also good. Why would this little brat with snot stay behind? Mo Xiaobao said in disdain in his heart. Father is bad. Little Mo Yufeng sniffled and pouted, I want to be a great general. I don't want to fall to the point where I can't even afford to eat." Hearing this, Mo Xiaobao's eyes twitched. He roughly understood that his heartless father was lying again. However, wasn't this little brother a bit too stupid? He wasn't so easy to fool when he was 6. Forget it. I'll teach him slowly. Otherwise, he won't even know when he's sold off and still have to count the money for them. Thus, the 15-year-old Mo Xiaobao started his life as a stay-at-home dad before he even got married. Prince Ding, who was in his prime, left the young prince behind. No, it should be said that the new Prince Ding ran off without a trace. This caused the surrounding countries to become restless. Even if Mo Xiaobao was a genius, he was only 15 years old. How could he manage such a huge family business like the Prince Ding mansion? One had to know that even Mo Xiaoyao was rolling on the battlefield when he was 15 years old. Should they use this chance to test Mo Xiaoyao's reaction and Mo Xiaobao's ability? On the other hand, the minds of many people in Glass City were once again active. The former Prince Ding refused to take a concubine and was unwilling to ascend the throne. But what did the new young prince think? Which ambitious man wouldn't want to rule the world? Grasping the power of the world while sober and lying on the knees of beautiful women while drunk could be said to be the highest goal of any ambitious man in the world. Now, a 15-year-old brat had obtained it effortlessly. How could he not have any thoughts about it? Thus, there were more and more people moving around in Glass City. At this time, the world still didn't know that the new little Prince Mo Xiaobao of the Prince Ding mansion, who had no moral integrity, was lying in the backyard of the mansion playing with his younger brother. "Brother, are you getting married?" Mo Yufeng was lying in front of the sand table, pondering how to fight with his brother as he blinked his eyes and asked. Although Mo Xiaobao was only 15 years old, his figure was no less than that of an adult. It was just that with the combination of Mo Xiaoyao and Yi Li's good looks, his delicate and handsome face made him show the childishness that a youth of his age should have. However, Mo Xiaobao didn't mind that his appearance didn't have the majesty of a king. Majesty wasn't something that could be gained by relying on looks. Pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger was too satisfying. Lazily sitting on the ground, Mo Xiaobao glanced at his younger brother and said, "Did someone ask you?" "Yes, yes." Mo Yufeng excitedly laid on his brother's body and said with a smile, "Many people asked me." "What did you say?" Mo Yufeng opened his big innocent eyes and said, "I said, brother said that you want to be a couple for life." "It's a couple for life," Mo Xiaobao corrected and then patted his younger brother's head in praise. "Well said." Mo Yufeng smiled and said, "Of course. I definitely won't tell anyone that you went to a brothel and had a few women." Mo Xiaobao expressionlessly pressed his younger brother's face into the carpet. What kind of brat was this? "Yo, you're abusing your younger brother again." Outside the door, Feng Jiao's laughing voice sounded. Mo Yufeng raised his head and smiled as he struggled to get up from Mo Xiaobao's body and continued to pounce on him. Mo Xiaobao's expression didn't change as he used his hand to suppress him. He raised his head to look at Feng Jiao and asked, "Uncle Feng, what's the matter?" Feng Jiao waved the booklet in his hand and said, "Your uncle asked me to bring it over. What's written in it?" Feng Jiao raised his eyebrows and gave him a look that said, "You already know the answer." Mo Xiaobao opened it to take a look. Sure enough, if it wasn't an invitation for the prince to ascend the throne, it was an invitation for the prince to get married. There was no lack of praises for the prince. Looking at it, Mo Xiaobao wondered if he was really a god descending from the heavens. He casually threw the booklet to Mo Yufeng to play with. Mo Xiaobao said, "Ask them who wants to ascend the throne. Let them come up with a booklet. I will give the position to him." Feng Jiao's mouth twitched. "They're inviting you to ascend the throne, okay?" Forget about his father being black-hearted. His son wasn't easy to deal with either. The moment he opened his mouth, he accused others of wanting to rebel. "Since it's my business, what does it have to do with them whether I ascend the throne or not? If they have nothing to do, they should think of how to kill Mo Suiyun for I." Mo Xiaobao rolled his eyes and said, "What's wrong with the little emperor in the south? I haven't heard of it. In these few years, The little emperor in the south worked very hard. The entire small imperial court in Jiangnan was also very obedient. Especially in the last 2 years, the little emperor finally really took power. He had some intentions of working hard to govern, just like the ruler of a resurgence. And Mo Xiaobao disdainfully spat out. What else can it be? He's ambitious and wants to reclaim the country. In these few years, the Princeton mansion had been recuperating and had no intention of sending troops to the outside world. These people couldn't have forgotten how sharp the swords of the Mahist army's cavalry were in just a few years, right? Actually, Mo Xiaobao was also clear that it was because he was too young and couldn't suppress people. If his father and mother were here, those people could only shrink back no matter how many thoughts they had. It was also because he knew that Mo Xiaobao was even more displeased. Student Mo Xiaobao was a child with great ambitions. Sooner or later, this prince will beat you until you cry for your father and call for your mother. Brother, be good. Lin Er will help you beat them. Mo Yufeng struggled in his arms and comforted him. Mo Xiaobao sadly looked at his little brother, who was like a little bean sprout. When you can beat them, it will take at least 8 or 9 years. Mo Yufeng was not convinced, his big eyes bulging. I will grow up very quickly. You are picky, naughty, running all over the place. It will take at least 10 years to grow up. 8 or 9 years is already my underestimation. When I fought with you, I was already this tall. Mo Xiaobao casually gestured, making Mo Yufeng look up, looking at his brother's height, then looking at himself. I'm not picky anymore, Mo Yufeng whispered. That's a good child. Picky eaters won't grow tall. You have to know, even if you're the young master of the Princeton mansion, being short doesn't have a future. If you go to the battlefield and need someone to carry you on a horse, in the future, when you marry a wife, you can't even reach her shoulder. What are you going to do? Chapter 1142. I'll go eat now. Mo Yufeng ran away in tears. Little prince, isn't it a bit unkind of you to lie to the second young master like this? Feng Jiao coughed. It wasn't just unkind, it was simply wicked. Mo Xiaobao disdainfully said, I haven't been fooled by father's childish words since I was 3 years old. He's already 6 years old, so you also know how to be childish. But in terms of scheming, Mo Yufeng wasn't as scheming as Mo Xiaobao. Ever since Mo Xiaobao could speak, he had been tricked and mocked by Mo Xiaoyao in all kinds of ways. During this time, there were also the great gods of the Su family who took turns lecturing him. It was hard not to become black. In comparison, although little friend Mo Yufeng was a bit narrow-minded, his days were much more comfortable. So it wasn't surprising that he was naive and easy to fool. Mo Xiaobao expressed that he didn't hate his father for tricking him into eating too much meat and not being able to find a wife in the future. He was only concerned about his younger brother. After little friend Mo Yufeng was beaten away by his unscrupulous older brother, Feng Jiao walked into the hall and asked, Then, what are your plans for the wedding? Mo Xiaobao was almost 16 years old and had officially taken over Prince Ding's position. At this age, it was indeed time to get married. In this world, it was important to first start a family and then start a career. Other than the unexpected situation back then, most people would get married around this age. If those old pedants used this to persuade him, it would be hard to say. But Feng Jiao glanced at Mo Xiaobao. This kid didn't look like someone who knew his place even more than his father. He probably wouldn't be so easily manipulated. Mo Xiaobao didn't reject the topic of the wedding at all. He smiled and said, Didn't Liner already announce it for me? One person for life. Let them send the person over. The one I like is Princess Ding. Looking at his kind smile, Feng Jiao only felt his scalp go numb. He asked, Then what about those you don't like? A pair for life, no matter whether or not anyone believed it, but it would definitely make many people's imaginations run wild. After all, the previous Prince Ding, who had just stepped down from his position, had only been with one woman for the rest of his life. Even though Ding Wang Fei's maternal family, the Yi family, did not gain any benefits, but the 5 young masters of Ding Wang Fei's external family, the Su family, all held power in their hands. In the past, the Su family only had a third-rank imperial censor in the imperial court. Now, they had become the prime minister and led the army to dominate the world in less than 10 years. All of this was because the Su family had a good granddaughter. Just a gamble on the glory of the world's #1 aristocratic family, the entire Glass City would probably rush to send their daughters and granddaughters to the Prince Ding mansion. Don't like, Mo Xiaobao rubbed his chin. After thinking for a while, he said, "Don't worry, it won't go to waste. That general has military merits, and some minister will reward him. Who knows when we'll have a marriage alliance or something. Our Prince Ding mansion doesn't have a girl, right? Now we have one." Young Master Feng San's face immediately darkened. Who would have nothing better to do to send a girl to be wasted like this? Although girls weren't as valuable as boys, they weren't picked up for free. Little Prince Mo's mouth just moved, and he wanted people to give up their carefully raised girl to be used as a reward. Seeing that young Master Feng San didn't say anything, Mo Xiaobao clapped his hands and smiled. "You also think it makes sense, right? Then let's do it. I'm only here to run an errand and deliver a booklet. What do you mean I think it makes sense?" Young Master Feng San could foresee that if these words were to spread, the roof of his house would be torn down by the angry crowd. Young Master Feng San's guess wasn't accurate. Even if little Prince Mo's words were spread, the people who wanted to send their daughters to the Prince Ding mansion were still scrambling like ducks. Ever since they realized that it was useless to push their daughters to Immo Xiaoyao, all the aristocratic families held back and tried to push their daughters to the younger ones. Especially now that His Highness Prince Ding, who was feared by many, had abdicated and the 15-year-old heir had succeeded the throne. He was at the age where he was lustful and admired young women. Perhaps his own daughter was the one who had moved the heir's heart. For a single girl, it was worth it to gamble the family's decades of glory, even if there was only a 1 in 100 or even a 1 in a few thousand. In the study of the Su estate, Su Qingyan was leaning on a chair and telling his older brother the rumors outside. As he spoke, he couldn't stop laughing while holding his stomach. "Big brother, among the girls who have been in the limelight recently, which one do you think is the most promising one?" Young Master Qingshun put down the booklet in his hand and glanced at his younger brother indifferently. "I think you're just bored and need to be taught a lesson." "Big brother, why do you say that? Our family's door is about to be broken by people these days. Even eldest sister-in-law's clinic is overcrowded every day. Didn't you see that eldest sister-in-law didn't even open her clinic these days?" Su Qingshun looked up. He couldn't care less about how those people wanted to make trouble, but if they disturbed his family's normal life, he couldn't allow it. "Isn't that right? I'm also surrounded by people asking me questions every day when I go out. If these people want to know so much, why don't they just ask little Mo?" Su Qingyan said with some annoyance. Even if he liked crowds, it wasn't a good thing to be surrounded by people all day. Su Qingshun pondered for a moment and said, "You can tell them to bring those girls back home early. There's no hope. If I say that, do you think I'll be beaten to death in the streets?" Su Qingyan asked hesitantly. After saying that, he looked at Su Qingshun curiously. "Big brother, you mean that little Mo doesn't plan to get married at all?" Young Master Qingshun said indifferently. Even if he originally wanted to get married, he wouldn't want to after these people brought it up first and caused such a ruckus. If those people think that little Mo is easier to fool than Mo Xiaoyao, I'm afraid they'll be in big trouble. Little Mo was obviously playing with these people. Mo Xiaoyao's style was clean and neat. He knew how to play dirty, but he actually had no interest in deliberately playing with people. However, little Mo obviously didn't know how he developed such a bad interest. Occasionally, young Master Qingshun would reflect on whether there was any problem with the Su family's education. In the end, the conclusion was that it was all Mo Xiaoyao's problem. A crooked stick would have a crooked shadow. Su Qingyan clicked his tongue. However, what he thought about his nephew's big black eyes that seemed to emit kindness and innocence at all times, but the things he did were so outrageous. Fifth young Master Su couldn't help but shudder. He silently prayed for those unlucky people in his heart. Chapter 1143. The news that the little prince of the Prince Ding mansion was going to choose a consort had unknowingly spread throughout the world. As a result, it wasn't just the nobles of Glass City who were excited. Even the powerful and influential people of other regions and neighboring countries were excited. Shilling, Southern Shu, and a few small kingdoms of the western regions had sent envoys to express their intentions of making peace through marriage. As for the influential nobles who belonged to Prince Ding's household, they were even more direct, directly bringing their daughters and hurrying to Glass City. These people's thoughts were very simple. It would be best if they were chosen, and their families would rise to the top. It didn't matter if they weren't chosen. They would just treat it as going to Glass City to see the world. Glass City was not only the capital of the Prince Ding mansion, but also a place where the countries of the western regions interacted with the Central Plains. Its reputation had long surpassed that of the Chu capital of the past, Guangling of the previous dynasty, and Nanjing of the present southern Chu. It had the grandeur of the #1 city of the Central Plains. On the crowded streets of Glass City, several youths of similar ages strolled through the crowd. Although their clothes were not eye-catching, their handsome appearances still attracted the attention of many passers-by. Mo Xiaobao touched his face with satisfaction. Qilin's disguise was indeed very good. No one recognized him on the streets. He turned back to look at Qin Ran, Su Zhirue, and Lung Junhan, and nodded with satisfaction. The four of them had all grown up in Glass City. The people of Glass City were very familiar with them, especially Mo Xiaobao. Ever since he inherited the position of Prince Ding, he would encounter all kinds of coincidental encounters every time he went out. Mo Xiaobao sadly discovered that although he had become a master of the Prince Ding mansion, the large Glass City was no longer the place where he could go to play as he wanted when he was young. As a result, in less than half a year, Mo Xiaobao had developed the habit of disguising himself when he went out. Why do I feel that the streets are especially lively? Glass City was very prosperous, but were there this many people? Mo Xiaobao said in a daze as he looked at the crowded silk shops, jewelry shops, and cosmetic shops. Could it be that his governance was so good that the population of Glass City had increased by so much in such a short time? Su Zhirue, who was following behind him, glanced at him indifferently and mercilessly shattered his fantasy. Stop dreaming. Isn't it all because of you? Over the past few days, the threshold of the Su mansion had almost been broken by people. Everywhere he went, people would ask him all sorts of questions. Young master, Su was a little angry. Me? Xiaobao looked at Su Zhirue innocently. What did I do? Lung Junhan smiled from ear to ear and watched the various beauties coming and going. She said, "Isn't His Highness Prince Ding going to choose a concubine? These young ladies are all preparing for the consort selection banquet. Regardless of whether or not a qualified princess consort could be chosen, at least the silk, rouge, powder, and jewelry businesses in Glass City had made a huge profit recently. From this aspect, Mo Xiao Prince still had some achievements. Consort selection banquet? What is that? Mo Xiaobao was a loss. The other three looked at each other and silently stared at Mo Xiaobao. After a while, Qinlai asked, "Don't tell me you didn't plan on choosing a consort at all?" Mo Xiaobao snorted proudly and said, "What consort selection? I was just saying. Did I officially send out the order? Did I send out a notice? I don't think so. It's clearly these people who think too highly of themselves." The group of four secretly hid in a tea house on the busiest street of Glass City. Looking down from the window above, they could see the situation on the other side of the street. "That seems to be Lord Wei's third young lady." Lung Junhan leaned against the window and said excitedly, "Wei's third young lady is now known as Glass City's #1 beauty. I didn't think she would also come." Mo Xiaobao looked outside with disinterest. Glass City's #1 beauty? She was just SOSO. She wasn't even as pretty as his mother and his aunts. The only thing that could be said was that she was older than them. She smiled. "I remember that Lord Wei's family background is average. Yuhan Pavilion's things aren't cheap. Send someone to investigate. If there's a problem, confiscate their house." Hearing Mo Xiaobao's words, Lung Junhan immediately lost interest in the #1 beauty. She turned around and leaned against the table, excitedly discussing with Immerse Xiaobao. That's right. We can send someone to record what they bought and then check the accounts. We can definitely catch many corrupt officials. Immerse Xiaobao propped up his chin and seriously considered the possibility of this matter. At the side, Su Zhuwei said with a headache, "You should first consider what you will do if Western Hill and Southern Chu really send a princess over for a political marriage." Political marriage? Southern Chu won't send a princess over, right? Southern Chu and the Prince Ding mansion were originally one family. Aunt Wang Fei lost, so close relatives couldn't marry. Qin Lai said with a smile. Speaking of which, the Prince Ding mansion and Southern Chu's blood relations are very distant. Maybe Immerse Suiyun really will send you a princess. Immerse Suiyun and Immerse Xiaobao were about the same age and were both young masters. Although the two of them hadn't started fighting yet, Qin Lai could already imagine the scene of them fighting in the future. Immerse Xiaobao rubbed his chin and chuckled. It's fine if they send one over. Aren't you both still engaged? How about one princess each? I don't want to. Lung Junhan was the first to object, righteously saying, "This young master is already engaged to little sister Xer for life. This young master wants to preserve little sister Xer's chastity." Bullshit. Immerse Xiaobao's thin and elegant lips spat out extremely rude words. Who agreed to you marrying Xen? If you dare to ruin I's little Xer's reputation again, I will give you to an ugly, fat, and hot-tempered hag. Lung Junhan immediately covered her mouth and hid behind Su Zhirui's hand. Immerse Xiaobao's thoughts were too frightening. What was even more frightening was that he really dared to put his thoughts into practice. Lung Junhan didn't want to see a 7-foot-tall, black, fat hag with buck teeth when she returned home that day. Frightened by her own thoughts, Lung Junhan's handsome little face turned green and white. Reporting to the prince, the Southern Chu envoy requests an audience. Outside the room, a guard hurriedly came to report. Immerse Xiaobao looked up. Southern Chu envoy? What's the matter? The guard handed over a gilded invitation and said, Emperor Chu is getting married. The prince is invited to attend the ceremony. Immerse Xiaobao took the invitation with interest. It was indeed written on the invitation that Emperor Chu, Immerse Suiyun, would marry the granddaughter of the Grand Tutor of Southern Chu, Lady Qian, as his empress. The little emperor is getting married? Should we go and take a look? Little emperor? Immerse Suiyun? Lung Junhan asked without much interest. He actually didn't have any impression of Immerse Suiyun, so naturally, he had long forgotten that he had cheated him. Of course, young Master Lung might not even think that he had cheated him. More than 5 years ago, none of them had taken Immerse Suiyun seriously. However, in the past few years, Immerse Suiyun had been playing very well in Southern Chu, fighting the court officials and the Empress Dowager. Now, he was not even 20 years old, but he had almost grasped the power of more than half of the Southern Chu court in his hands. This made Immerse Xiaobao start to pay attention to this little emperor who had once been praised by his Lord Father. As for Immerse Suiyun, he seemed to have gradually understood the joy of fighting against the heavens, fighting against the earth, and fighting against people. This year, he started to provoke Immerse Xiaobao, who was as young as him, from afar. Although he didn't do anything excessive, Immerse Xiaobao still keenly sensed the hostility of this little emperor who had once run away from home with him to play. Because of this, Immerse Xiaobao was silently sad for a quarter of an hour. Chapter 1144. You want to go to Southern Chu? Su Zhirui asked with a frown. Immerse Xiaobao sighed. If I don't go now, I won't have a chance in the future. Now, he still had his eldest uncle and fourth uncle to help him, but Immerse Xiaobao could tell that his eldest uncle wouldn't stay for long. If he didn't play when his eldest uncle was still around, he could only hold the booklet and cry when his eldest uncle ran away. But he should be able to delay it until Su Zhirui and Lung Junhan could help him, right? Immerse Xiaobao loved to discuss things with others, but the things he was willing to discuss with others were things he had already decided on. Therefore, the other 3 people only objected to his question for a while before they unanimously agreed. Actually, they also wanted to go out and play. The next morning, before dawn, the four figures slipped out of the Princeton mansion and prepared to head towards the city gate. When the city gate opened, they immediately slipped out of the city. Big brother, brother Xiaobao. Cheerful shouts came from the dark street. Xiaobao froze at first, then quickly rushed to the corner of the street and picked up the brat who was waving at him with a smug face. "Why are you here at this time?" Xiaobao gritted his teeth as he stared at the innocent and cute Yufeng. At this time, shouldn't this brat be sleeping soundly on the bed? Xiaobao grabbed Yufeng's collar and asked without the slightest guilt of abandoning his younger brother to play alone. Yufeng didn't mind being lifted in the air by his older brother and danced excitedly. Lin heard that brother Junhan wanted to sneak out to play without Lin. Lin wants to go too. Lin will wait here for brother to go together. The three youths all glared at Lung Junhan. "You can't do anything right." Lung Junhan rubbed her nose helplessly. Who knew that this brat would hear it so coincidentally? Lung Junhan took the little bun from Xiaobao and coaxed with a smile. "Lin be good. We're not going out to play. We're going out to do something. Lin will help brother." Yufeng raised his little hand and said enthusiastically, "You're only 6 years old, half a fart. It's very tiring to eat and sleep outdoors every day. There are tigers that want to eat people." Lung Junhan threatened. Yufeng looked at him with bright eyes. "Tigers? Kill the tiger." Su Zhirue stepped forward and grabbed Yufeng. He stared at him and said, "You're not allowed to go." "You can't go." Yufeng blinked his eyes and looked at his cousin anxiously. "Yes." Yufeng's small mouth twitched, and he was about to burst into tears. Everyone hurriedly stepped forward and covered his little mouth tightly. This little ancestor was so full of energy that when he cried, he could wake up half the people on the street. The child lay in Su Zhirue's arms and looked at his brother pitifully. "I won't let you go. Cry." Xiaobao rolled his eyes and took back his words. Who said that this brat was stupid? He would kick him to death. Thus, the group of 4 youths who had been tricked by a child under the age of 7 brought a white and tender little bun out of the city gate. When dawn broke and young Master Qingshan came to the Princeton mansion to discuss government affairs, he found that there was not a single master in the mansion. In the study, there was a letter on the table where he usually sat. Emperor Chu's wedding. He would definitely return in half a year. Su Qingyan, who was standing behind young Master Qingshan, could not help but twitch his mouth. Sending a wedding gift for half a year, this little prince was really relieved. Xiaobao even took Lin away. Should we go and chase him back? Fourth brother was a half-grown child, so it was not very reassuring to bring a real child out. Su Qingshan shook his head and put down the letter. He slowly began to deal with government affairs. No need. Since he brought him out, he must know what to do. Moreover, even if Xiaobao ran away from home, how could he really leave the children alone? There must be a lot of shadow guards, and even Qilin secretly following him. There were also the people from the Princeton mansion who took care of them, so there was no need to worry about anything happening. Su Qingyan nodded. In his heart, he secretly criticized Xiaobao for being unloyal. He did not even inform him when there was something fun. Just as he was thinking, he saw Su Qingshan suddenly turn around and stare at him. Su Qingyan jumped in fright, thinking that his big brother had seen through his thoughts. Big brother? Su Qingshan said indifferently. There is something that needs to be dealt with quickly. What is it? Su Qingyan was confused. Su Qingshan said indifferently. It's about the consort selection banquet. The old men in Glass City who were bored out of their minds placed great importance on this matter, even more so than when they were waiting for Xiuyao to ascend the throne. It was said that even the location and time had been set. If they knew that Xiaobao had run away after tricking them, wouldn't they vomit blood in anger? What does it have to do with us? Su Qingyan said in a trembling voice. He did not want to argue with those old men at all. Young Master Qingshan was silent for a moment before nodding. That's right. It has nothing to do with us. If anyone asks, just tell them to wait for the prince to return before making a decision. Su Qingyan nodded and said with a smile, maybe Xiaobao will bring back a consort when he returns. If that was the case, who knew what those old men's expressions would be like? On the official road several dozen li away from Glass City, fourth brother was riding a horse slowly on the official road. There was a little doll that looked like it was carved from jade on the back of one of the horses. I keep feeling that we have forgotten something. Lung Junhan frowned and said with a bit of vexation. Mo Xiaobao looked at him and said, "What is it?" Lung Junhan glanced at him and said, "The consort selection banquet." He seemed to remember that he had heard someone say that the consort selection banquet was scheduled for the beginning of next month. There was still more than 10 days left. When Mo Xiaobao wasn't here, what would they choose? Mo Xiaobao waved his hand unconcernedly and said, "Small matter. Did you give orders before you left?" "Why would I give orders?" Mo Xiaobao did not understand. That consort selection banquet wasn't something that I told them to do. If they want to do it, then do it. As for how they would choose and who would marry the chosen one, it was not something that he could control. He had just casually expressed his beautiful wish to be with someone close to him for the rest of his life. Who knew that these people would be so bored that they would imagine so many things? They might delay the time and wait for you to go back. He could not underestimate these people's obsession with Princess Ding's position. It would not be difficult to wait for Mo Xiaobao to go back and do this. Mo Xiaobao would have to go back eventually. Mo Xiaobao rubbed his little brother's head and said with a smile, "That's even better. I remember that there are still many unmarried soldiers in the Mahist army. I was planning to hold half a blind date banquet to help the soldiers settle their marriage." Chapter 1145. Jiangnan Nanjing City. The rich and vast Dechu state that once dominated a region, and the Dechu state that was once known as one of the two hegemons of the world with Xiling, was now just like Xiling. It could be said that the Western Tomb and the Great Chu were fated to meet. Originally, they came from the same source, and at almost the same time, they established their countries and became strong. Then, they became enemies with each other, but at almost the same time, they declined because of the same people and reasons. After the war a few years ago, more than half of Xiling and Dechu State's territory belonged to the Prince Ding Mansion. Although the master of the Prince Ding Mansion was unwilling to ascend the throne, and even his master disappeared in the end, the power of the Prince Ding Mansion still continued to grow. But it was still unable to stop Ding Wangfu's power from growing stronger day by day. The people under his command lived and worked in peace and contentment. It was as though the whole world had submitted to him. Although the war had only happened a few years ago, Jiangnan had not been affected by the war. The little emperor, who had seized power with great difficulty these few years, had also worked hard. Once they entered Nanjing City, it was difficult to see the prosperity and liveliness of Nanjing City. Although it could not be compared to Glass City, which had guests from all over the world, it had more of the charm of a 1,000-year-old ancient city that Glass City did not have. Mo Xiaobao and the others attracted the attention of passers-by as soon as they entered the city. 4 handsome youths with extraordinary auras walking side by side was already very eye-catching. Needless to say, the most outstanding of the youths, who was wearing a black brocade, was holding a 5 or 6-year-old child wearing a white brocade. He saw the little baby lying in the young man's arms, a pair of big round eyes looking around curiously. If not for the fact that these youths did not look like ordinary people, many Andes who were attracted by the child would have gone up to pinch it. The group of 4 and 1 small entered the city and swaggered towards the best inn in Nanjing City. After settling down in the inn, Mo Xiaobao played with his little brother's restless paws while looking at the others. "We seem to have come early. Is there anything fun to play with?" Didn't he come early? Mo Suiyun's wedding was set to be on the 19th of this month, and today was only the 8th. There was still more than 10 days to go. These 10 days were enough for Mo Xiaobao to turn the entire Nanjing upside down. Qinlai raised his eyes to look at Mo Xiaobao, and then sat to the side to wipe his sword. He was a bodyguard, so of course he would do whatever his master told him to do. Therefore, it was not up to him to use his brain. Furthermore, he didn't need to be responsible for any bad consequences. Su Zhuruei thought about it seriously and said, I'm going to visit some great scholars in Jiangnan. Therefore, he would not go with Xiaobao. If Mo Xiaobao did something that angered the heavens and people in Jiangnan, it was none of his business. Only Lung Junhan was in high spirits. She blinked and said, "Aren't we going to play with the little emperor?" Xiaobao pursed his lips. The little emperor must be very busy right now. Where would he have the time to play with us? As guests, we shouldn't trouble the host. Lung Junhan immediately wilted. What else is there to play with in Jiangnan other than the little emperor? And Mo Xiaobao rolled his eyes and smiled slyly at Lung Junhan, saying, "Well, what idea do you have?" Lung Junhan's eyes lit up. Su Zhiruwei and Qin Lai touched their noses and moved aside. For so many years, they had never understood whether Lung Junhan was really stupid or pretending to be stupid. He was always tricked by Mo Xiaobao with all kinds of ridiculous and childish reasons to do all kinds of outrageous things, and then he would look innocent and wronged afterwards. He was stupid because no matter how ridiculous Mo Xiaobao's reasons were, he would run over in the end. He was pretending to be stupid because every time he did something bad, at least half of the consequences were borne by Mo Xiaobao himself. Regarding this, young Master Lung's father once complained to Prince Ding that his son was bullied into being stupid by the little heir. Young Master Qin Chun, who was the wisest in the world, said that great wisdom appeared to be stupidity. Mo Xiaobao glanced at Qin Lai and Su Zhiruwei, who were unwilling to be with him, and whispered a few words in Lung Junhan's ear. Lung Junhan's handsome eyes suddenly widened. He looked at Mo Xiaobao hesitantly and said, "This isn't it a little too wicked?" Qin Lai and Su Zhiruwei couldn't help but pricked up their ears. Even little dummy Lung, who had always been wicked, felt that it was wicked. How wicked was it? Was Mo Xiaobao planning to kill all the people in Nanjing City? Mo Xiaobao disagreed. "How is this wicked? We are helping him." "No, you can do this kind of thing yourself." This time, Lung Junhan refused firmly. "I want to keep my chastity for Sister Exener." Mo Xiaobao rolled his eyes and glanced at Lung Junhan with disdain. "Still thinking about my Exener? You really don't want to go? Forget it if you don't want to go. When Exener gets married in the future, I will inform you to attend the wedding banquet." Mo Xiaobao said leisurely. "You bully." Young Master Lung glared at Mo Xiaobao. When he thought of his beautiful, smart, fair, and tender sister Exen, being snatched away by another stinky man, his heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. In order to get the beauty in the future, he had to sell himself to Mo Xiaobao. "I'll go, good boy," Mo Xiaobao said with a smile as he hugged his younger brother. Mo Xiaobao. Lung Junhan is only 14 years old. Is it really okay to force him to go to a brothel? Of course, Mo Xiaobao didn't want Lung Junhan to go to a brothel. After sending Su Zhiruwei off with a smile, Mo Xiaobao ignored Lung Junhan, who was in a dilemma. He hugged his cute little brother and went out with Qin Lai. Walking on the street, Qin Lai couldn't help but ask, "What did you ask Lung Junhan to do?" Mo Xiaobao smiled proudly. "Do you want to know?" "I won't tell you." Mo Yufeng raised his hand happily and said, "Brother Qin Lai, I know. Big brother asked brother Junhan to seduce." Woo-woo. Mo Yufeng's little mouth was covered by Mo Xiaobao's hand, and he cried angrily. The corner of Qin Lai's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Although the little child didn't have time to finish, he could basically guess it. With Mo Xiaobao's bad nature, he definitely wouldn't let Lung Junhan seduce an ordinary person. After thinking for a while, Qin Lai asked, "Don't tell me you're planning to let Lung Junhan seduce the princess of Southern Shu?" Mo Suiyun wanted to marry his royal sister to Mo Xiaobao and be Mo Xiaobao's brother-in-law for a long time. Although he wasn't sure where this royal sister came from, she at least had the title of princess. If Lung Junhan seduced her, it wouldn't just be Mo Suiyun and Southern Shu that would lose face. Little Mo Yufeng shook his head repeatedly and danced in Mo Xiaobao's arms. Mo Xiaobao calmly suppressed his little brother's rebellious behavior. Although Mo Yufeng was already 6 years old and his little arms and legs weren't light, he was still as powerless in Mo Xiaobao's hands as when he was 1 or 2 years old. How could it be? How could I do such a tasteless thing? I clearly asked him to seduce the eldest daughter of the Qian family. Chapter 1146. It was tasteless to seduce other people's princess, but was it tasteless to seduce other people's empress? Qinlai was seriously considering whether to send more guards to Nanjing, in case Mo Xiaobao was accidentally torn apart by the angry Mo Suiyin. Do you think Ling Junhan could do it? A handsome 14-year-old boy couldn't compete with a 17 or 18-year-old emperor who already had power in his hands. Don't worry, I've sent someone to check. This Miss Qian is gentle and kind by nature, and she prefers handsome young men who are also gentle and elegant. Mo Xiaobao waved his hand to show that he was fully prepared. Qinlai thought for a while and was still a little worried. Send more people to protect Lung Junan. Okay, do as you see fit. Mo Xiaobao walked forward with his younger brother in his arms, revealing a sly smile like a fox. Student Qinlai, who didn't even say a word of advice from beginning to end. Do you think you are a righteous and kind person? That's why birds of a feather flock together. Within a radius of 10 miles around Mo Xiaobao Prince, even the heart of a mosquito was black. Inside the palace, Mo Suiyin was sitting in the imperial study, reviewing memorials. The surrounding palace maids and eunuchs were standing quietly, not daring to disturb the emperor. Although Mo Suiyin was only 18 years old, after these years of training, especially after taking back the power that belonged to him from the hands of the Empress Dowager and the ministers in the court, he had more experience and calmness than his age. If it weren't for the 2 previous emperors who went against the flow and left him with such a mess, Mo Suiyin might have become the real master of the Chu state's revival. But now, no matter how hard he tried, he could only let the Chu state stay in Jiangnan. And this was still based on the Prince Ding Mansion's unwillingness to start a war. Otherwise, no matter how hard Mo Suiyin tried, he couldn't be sure whether the current southern Chu army could resist the Mahist army's iron cavalry. Your Majesty, a man who looked like a guard came in and bowed. Ping Sheng, say it, Mo Suiyin said without raising his head. Are the people from the Prince Ding Mansion or the people from the West Hill? This imperial bodyguard had received his orders to be in charge of tracking the movements of the envoys from various countries for this grand wedding. Although there were still a dozen or so days before the wedding, it wasn't strange for people to arrive early. What they needed to do was to grasp the movements of these people and prevent them from doing anything they shouldn't do within southern Chu's borders. Prince Ding is here. The pen in Mo Siyun's hand paused for a moment before he realized that the Prince Ding mentioned by the guard was not the famous Prince Ding, Mo Xiuyao, but the little Prince Mo Yuchen who had just taken office. He snuck in secretly. After this year, Mo Suiyun already had some understanding of Mo Xiaobao. If he had obediently led the envoys and swaggered to inform the imperial court, Mo Suiyun might have thought that there might be some conspiracy. The imperial bodyguard shook his head and said, Prince Ding only brought 4 people and directly entered through the city gates. He didn't change his appearance or disguise himself. Even his attire was his usual flamboyant and luxurious ink-colored brocade robe. He was also carrying a 6-year-old child. Mo Suiyin put down his pen and thought for a moment before saying, Go invite Princess Lin and over. Yes, this official will take his leave. Not long after, a stunning beauty wearing a pink robe walked in. She was only 14 or 15 years old, but her every movement already had an elegant and moving grace. The young girl bowed to Mo Suiyun and said, Lin and greets imperial brother. Princess Lin, and wasn't the biological daughter of the late Emperor Mo Jingxi. Instead, she was one of the princesses of the imperial family that Mo Suiyun had brought into the palace to raise in the name of the Empress Dowager after he took power. Mo Suiyun was very clear that Southern Chu's current situation required marriage alliances from many sides. Furthermore, he was still young and didn't have any suitable sisters. Therefore, when he first took power, he brought the daughters of Prince Ding into the palace and conferred upon them the title of princess. Anyone with a discerning eye knew that the so-called princesses were all prepared for political marriages. Among them, Princess Lin was the most intelligent. At the same time, her appearance was also one of the most beautiful. Imo Suiyun naturally had high hopes for her, not to mention anything else. Just looking at Prince Ding's attitude towards Princess Ding, Imo Xiaoyao's attitude towards Princess Ding, the various countries still secretly used the beauty trap as a magic weapon to win over the new Prince Ding. They had been working tirelessly. Imo Xiaoyao could be said to be wholeheartedly devoted to Princess Ding. He wouldn't give her the moon if she wanted stars. He didn't love the country, only the beauty. She didn't expect Imo Xiaobao to be like his father. As long as he had half of his father's infatuation, it would be enough, right? Imperial brother, do you have any instructions for Linen? Princess Lin asked with a smile. Unlike other princesses who knew that they were going to be used for political marriages and were depressed, Princess Lin had always been cheerful and generous. Because she understood that since fate couldn't be changed, then she had to fight for the best result for herself. Imo Suiyun looked at her and said with a smile, Imperial sister, do you still remember what I told you before? Princess Lin was stunned and suddenly reacted. Her pretty face suddenly turned red with anger. Ah. What Imperial brother said is, Imo Suiyun nodded and said, yes, Imo Yuchen has already arrived in Nanjing. Princess Lin tried to suppress her heartbeat and bowed her head. Linen, I'm afraid Prince Ding won't take a fancy to me. Imo Suiyun smiled faintly and said, Imperial sister, you worry too much. Now, even in the whole world, there are only a few women who can be as good as Imperial sister in both literature and martial arts. These words were true. Princess Lin was not only proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting since she was a child, but in recent years, she also practiced martial arts. Although she couldn't become a master, she also had a little success. Compared with the ordinary Jiangnan girls, she had a little more heroic spirit. Imo Suiyun stood up and said with a smile, Anyway, I have nothing to do now. Imperial sister, why don't you go out with me? Princess Lin knew that Imo Suiyun wanted to see Prince Ding, Imo Yuchen, and couldn't help blushing. Most of the girls at their age grew up listening to the legend of Prince Ding and Princess Consort. No one didn't envy Princess Ding's luck and the feelings between the two. For Imo Yuchen, the beloved son of Prince Ding and Princess Consort, they naturally had a little more expectations. Imperial sister obeys. Please wait a moment, Imperial brother. Let Imperial sister change clothes and come over. Imo Suiyun smiled faintly and said, Go. Watching Princess Lin turn around and walk away quickly, Imo Suiyun's handsome face showed a bit of deep thought. Imo Yuchen had been scheming since he was a child. Mo Suiyun didn't have much hope that the honey trap would work, but it didn't matter if it didn't work out. He could just treat it as an ordinary marriage. It was just that Imo Suiyun didn't know that when he prepared a honey trap to entertain Imo Xiaobao was also deliberately trying to steal his wife. Chapter 1147. The Floral Moon Brothel was the most famous brothel in Nanjing City because there was a beautiful lady called Shirin who was known as Jiangnan's #1 courtesan. Ever since the Dechu state moved south to Jiangnan, there were many people who led a befuddled life. Even in these few years, the entire Jiangnan didn't become serious because of Imo Suiyun's ambition to make the country rich and powerful. Instead, there were endless sounds of debauchery. Every day, countless princes, young masters, talents would sleep in the brothel, unable to wake up. This also caused Shirin's reputation to spread even further. On this day, a few strange guests came to the Floral Moon Brothel. The brothel usually didn't open for business during the day, but 3 guests came early in the morning. 2 handsome young men. One was dressed in black and looked extremely handsome, with a smile on his face. The other was dressed in dark green, with a tall figure and a cold expression. The most important thing was that the young man in white was carrying a 5 to 6-year-old child in white brocade clothes. The moment the 3 of them entered, they wanted the #1 courtesan in the Floral Moon Brothel, Shirin, to sing. The brothel keeper, who was unhappy at first, was overjoyed when she saw the banknotes that the other party casually gave out. Opening a brothel was to earn money. As long as there was money to be earned, who cared if it was open during the day or at night? Thus, the two young men and the child were welcomed by the brothel keeper into the best room on the second floor of the Floral Moon brothel. The cold sound of the zither rang out in the room. There were good wine and delicious food, beautiful maids looking around, and enchanting dancers dancing. And Mo Xiaobao was half lying on a recliner, drinking wine while squinting his eyes to watch the singing and dancing in front of him. Not far away, there was a beautiful woman with a veil sitting and playing the zither. And Mo Yufeng was placed on a chair by him, lying on top of him as he curiously watched the singing and dancing in front of him. Qin Lai sat on a chair on the other side, eating the freshest fruits from Jiangnan, while saying casually, "Is the brothel in Jiangnan more fun than the one in Glass City?" Glass City was the most prosperous city in the Central Plains. What kind of brothel didn't it have? There were even many blonde courtesans, but Mo Xiaobao didn't seem to like them that much. If it was for the sake of striking beauty, then that was even more wrong. What kind of beauty hadn't Glass City seen before? At least half of the top 10 beauties in the world were in Glass City. And Mo Xiaobao lazily looked at him and said, "I'll lie, you don't understand. In Glass City, there are always some misgivings when playing. We can't go overboard in our own territory." Qin Lai nodded in understanding. Glass City citizens mostly watched Mo Xiaobao and Ting Shui grow up. Little Prince Mo felt that he couldn't let loose in his own territory. As the saying goes, even rabbits don't eat the grass near their burrows. Mo Xiaobao nodded with satisfaction and said with a smile, "That's right. Besides, since I've come to Jiangnan, it would be a pity if I didn't take a look at the number 1 courtesan in Jiangnan." "Now that you've seen it, what do you think?" Qin Lai asked. Mo Xiaobao sighed and said, "The little emperor's taste is very ordinary." The number 1 courtesan in Jiangnan in front of him, although she didn't pull down her veil, Mo Xiaobao claimed that he had seen countless people. Just by looking, he could tell how stunning this girl's appearance was. And that zither skill that was said to be the best in Jiangnan was very ordinary. Do you think that this young master didn't learn the zither and couldn't hear the dissatisfaction in your zither? What did you say? What does this have to do with the little emperor? Qin Lai almost jumped out of his chair. And Mo Xiaobao looked at him innocently. "And, didn't I say it? Shirin is Mo Suyun's confidant." Qin Lai almost wanted to vomit blood. In the morning, he ordered someone to seduce someone else's fiancée, and now he was seducing his confidant. Did he really think that Mo Suyun, the little emperor, didn't have a temper? A strong dragon couldn't suppress a snake in its old haunts. If Mo Suyun was really angered, be careful that he secretly killed you. "A lie. Don't be nervous." Mo Xiaobao comforted Qin Lai with a smile. Qin Lai glanced at Shirin, who was playing the zither with her head lowered, and sneered, "I'm not nervous. The person that Mo Suyun wants to kill when he gets angry is definitely not me." Mo Xiaobao held his chin and said lazily, "I'll lie. You're thinking too much. Don't think that everyone is as violent as you. I just came to visit Miss Shirin. Would Mo Suyun kill me? Or do you think that Mo Suyun is a love saint who wants a beauty but not his country?" Qin Lai was speechless. According to their understanding of the past few years, the words Mo Suyun and love saint were as unattainable as Mo Xiaobao being a good person. "Two young masters, Shirin will take her leave." After the song ended, Miss Shirin, who was still wearing a pale dress, stood up and bowed, saying lightly, Shirin had already been the number 1 courtesan in Jiangnan for many years. Among them, she had made friends with countless princes, nobles, and refined scholars. Not one of these people didn't flatter her and were courteous and attentive. But these 2 youths had already run over to listen to her play the zither. That was fine, but in fact, it didn't listen at all. It was just that her zither music was talking by itself. This kind of contempt and neglect was something that Xu Feng had never experienced before. He was already somewhat unwilling to accept it, but now his expression became even colder. "Take your leave?" Immerse Xiaobao sat up and looked at Shirin with a smile. This young master is waiting for a friend. It's very boring since he hasn't come yet. Miss Shirin, please play a few more songs. Shirin was angry and was about to refuse coldly. But when her gaze met the eyes of the youth in front of her, she suddenly lost her words. That pair of black eyes clearly carried a joyful smile. But for some reason, Shirin felt a chill in her heart. She wanted to refuse, but she couldn't say it out loud. Immerse Xiaobao looked at Shirin indifferently and said, Miss Shirin, please sit properly. Miss should know the person who is coming. Thus, the number one courtesan in Jiangnan, who was usually untainted, could only sit down obediently. After another hour or so, the sound of steady footsteps came from outside the door. Immerse Xiaobao raised his hand, and the music in the hall immediately stopped. Looking at the door, it was indeed Immerse Suiyun in casual clothes standing at the door. But beside Immerse Suiyun, there was a very beautiful girl in blue clothes. The girl looked at Immerse Xiaobao, who was half lying on the couch and playing with his younger brother in the hall, and was stunned. Her expression was a bit strange. Brother Suiyun, why don't you come in? Immerse Xiaobao said with a smile. Immerse Suiyun stepped into the hall. His gaze paused on the assailant for a moment before he looked at Immerse Xiaobao and said indifferently, Prince Ding is really in a good mood. Immerse Xiaobao smiled wholeheartedly and said, How so? I just came to Jiangnan and didn't know where to have fun. I only heard that Miss Shirin's zither skills were praised by Brother Suiyun, so I came to have a look. I hope Brother Suiyun won't blame me. No. Prince Ding is too serious. Immerse Suiyun said with gritted teeth. Immerse Xiaobao was very indifferent. I knew that Brother Suiyun wouldn't be so petty. I'll lie. See, I didn't say anything wrong, right? Qinlai looked at Immerse Xiaobao speechlessly and walked over to take Immerse Yufeng out of Immerse Xiaobao's arms. He didn't want to accidentally hurt him. Chapter 1148. Didn't you see the look in Immerse Suiyun's eyes that wanted to strangle you to death? Young master. Seeing Immerse Suiyun, Shirin immediately got up to greet him, looking at him with some grievance. There was also a red circle around her charming eyes. But Immerse Suiyun didn't support her and comfort her as she expected. He only glanced at her indifferently and sat down opposite Immerse Xiaobao. He said indifferently, Prince Ding is a guest. As long as Prince Ding enjoys himself, it's fine. Shirin didn't neglect Prince Ding, right? Hearing this, Shirin's face turned pale. She bit her lips and didn't dare to speak. Immerse Xiaobao didn't seem to see the fear in her eyes. He said with a smile, A courtesan is inevitably a bit arrogant. Just like our courtesan in Glass City. What's her name again? Every time I went there, she would throw a tantrum. Miss Shirin is already very good. Immerse Suiyun glanced at Shirin and said, You can go back. You don't have to stay in Floral Moon Brothel anymore. Yes, young master. Shirin's voice trembled as she said in a low voice. Although she was a courtesan in Floral Moon Brothel, her other identity was a spy that Immerse Suiyun had planted in Floral Moon Brothel. Now that the officials in Southern Chu liked to sleep with courtesans, there was naturally a lot of information that could be gathered in brothels. Therefore, Shirin was also valued by Immerse Suiyun. But she had been a spy for a few years and didn't expect that the two youths who came early to listen to the zither were the new Prince Ding and Immerse Yuchen. Instead, she offended them. But even if she didn't offend Immerse Yuchen, she wouldn't stay in Floral Moon Brothel for long, right? Immerse Suiyun had never set foot in brothels, but Prince Ding knew that their relationship wasn't shallow. He had already known her true identity and came to find her. After sending Shirin out, Immerse Suiyun looked at Immerse Xiaobao and said, Prince Ding, we've finished listening to the song. Why don't we change places to talk? Even if Immerse Suiyun's skin was thick after all these years, he was still embarrassed to talk about marriage with Immerse Xiaobao in this kind of place. That feeling. Even if the marriage was successful, it didn't feel like he was marrying a princess. Instead, it felt like he was marrying a prostitute. Immerse Xiaobao, on the other hand, was not so particular. Looking at the rather tasteful hall, he said, Why go through so much trouble? Although the ladies in Floral Moon Brothel look ordinary, their desserts are not bad. Brother Sui-yun, don't be so accommodating. Speaking of which, Brother Sui-yun really is good luck with women. Just now, the number 1 courtesan left. I think that this young lady is no worse than that young lady Shirin. Princess Lin, who was following beside Mo Sui-yun, turned pale and glared at Mo Xiaobao with some resentment. Mo Sui-yun also knew Mo Xiaobao's character. He never had any morals when speaking to outsiders. He could only say calmly, "This is my imperial sister, Princess Lin. Lin, this is Prince Ding." Princess Lin stepped forward and bowed. Lin greets Prince Ding. Mo Xiaobao tilted his head and glanced at Princess Lin. He smiled and said, "I was impolite. Princess, please don't blame me." Princess Lin blushed and said softly, in Prince Ding's eyes. Mo Sui-yun looked at Mo Xiaobao with a smile and said, "Lin's talent and appearance can be considered one of the best in the world. Moreover, she has admired Prince Ding's concubine since she was young and diligently practiced martial arts. She can be said to be well-versed in both the pen and the sword." "Imperial brother," Princess Lin said coquettishly. Mo Sui-yun smiled leisurely and looked at Mo Xiaobao with raised eyebrows. Mo Xiaobao blinked his eyes and looked at Princess Lin with a smile. "Princesses really work hard. But why are you learning from my mother? My imperial father doesn't plan to take in a secondary concubine in this lifetime." Princess Lin, who was still smiling, turned pale and was on the verge of collapsing. Although they had only met for less than a quarter of an hour, Princess Lin had already experienced the prowess of this extraordinarily handsome young man. Mo Xiaobao Prince was extraordinarily handsome and had a naturally smiling and pure and innocent face. Who knew how many people who claimed to be smart had been deceived by him? When they first met, even if Princess Lin was already prepared, she still couldn't help but be moved. It was a pity that this charming and gentle thought didn't have time to ferment before it was struck by Mo Xiaobao and disappeared without a trace. If Mo Xiaobao wanted to pretend to be innocent, even if he killed someone in front of you, you would still think that he was innocent. But if he wanted to provoke others, no matter how sweet his smile was, it would make people want to give him a punch in the face. Not only Princess Lin, even Mo Sui-yun's face changed. Mo Sui-yun's face sank slightly and said indifferently, "Prince Ding must be joking. The world knows that the former Prince Ding's uncle is sincere to the princess. How can Lin have such an overconfident idea?" Mo Xiaobao tilted his head and fed his younger brother a snack. He asked with a smile, "It's good that you don't. To be honest, I also don't want to have another little miss." "Princess, I'm sorry, I misunderstood." Princess Lin's face turned green and white. After a while, she finally recovered and forced a smile. "Prince is too polite. It's just a misunderstanding." Looking at Princess Lin's appearance, Mo Sui-yun sighed and waved his hand at Princess Lin, indicating for her to withdraw. Princess Lin also didn't want to face this troublesome Prince Ding here. She bowed and turned to leave. Looking at Princess Lin's leaving figure, Mo Xiaobao sneered and winked proudly at Qin Lai, not caring that there was another party present. Mo Sui-yun stared at Mo Xiaobao and said in a deep voice, "Lin is a girl." Prince Ding's words just now were a bit too much. Mo Xiaobao was at a loss. "I was too modest. You think that by pretending to misunderstand, others can't see that you did it on purpose?" Mo Sui-yun said in a deep voice, "Prince Ding, do you still remember the matter that I proposed a few days ago?" Mo Xiaobao sat up and restrained some of his mischievous expression. "Political marriage?" Mo Sui-yun nodded. Mo Xiaobao touched his chin and asked, "Princess Lin is naturally the best candidate. If Prince Ding is not satisfied, I still have a few other royal sisters." Mo Xiaobao waved his hand and said, "I'm not dissatisfied, but I am still young and have no plans to get married for the time being. If Princess Lin can wait, then it's fine. Prince Ding is already 16 years old. It's time for him to get married." Mo Sui-yun said. Mo Xiaobao waved his hand and said, I plan to be like royal father and get married at 25 years old. There are still 9 years before 25 years old. Not to mention that Princess Lin would become an old lady by then. If Immerse Xiaobao kept his promise, it didn't matter if he gave up a princess. But who knew what would happen in these 9 years? I heard that Glass City is preparing to hold a consort selection banquet. Immerse Xiaobao chuckled and said, "That's right. Brother Suiyun, are you interested?" Immerse Suiyun said in a deep voice, "What if Lin can stand out from the consort selection banquet?" Immerse Xiaobao said sincerely, "Then I will seriously choose a good husband for Princess." Immerse Xiaobao touched his nose and said with a smile, "Brother Suiyun, Glass City is planning to hold a beautiful banquet. What's the difference? I can arrange a marriage for them after selecting them, lest they keep thinking about I." Immerse Xiaobao said as a matter of fact. Chapter 1149. At this point, if Immerse Suiyun still couldn't understand Immerse Xiaobao's meaning, then he should abdicate immediately. Because he didn't have much hope for the beauty trap to work, Immerse Suiyun wasn't too angry even though he was a little unhappy. Then, he calmed down and nodded indifferently. "I see. I really envy Prince Ding's carefree nature." These words were absolutely sincere. In this world, there were very few people who could be unrestrained. Even though they were the rulers of their respective countries, their actions were often restricted by the situation and strength of their respective countries. Those who could do whatever they wanted were only incapable rulers. But Immerse Xiaobao was different. He had the natural advantages left behind by Immerse Xiaoyao. Although he was still young and might not be able to truly convince the masses, he had a smart mind that most people in the world couldn't compare to and the full support of the Su family. So, he could be willful and reckless. Facing Immerse Suiyun's jealous praise, Immerse Xiaobao only touched his nose and smiled. "I also envy Brother Suiyun for finding a satisfactory empress so quickly. I wish Brother Suiyun and Miss Qian to grow old together and never leave each other." Immerse Suiyun was silent. He didn't know why Immerse Xiaobao's congratulations sounded more like a curse in his ears. Immerse Suiyun quickly left with Princess Lin. As an emperor, and an emperor who was about to get married, he naturally wasn't as lucky as Immerse Xiaobao to wander around. Qinlai hugged Immerse Yufeng and sat down at the side. He looked at Immerse Xiaobao with a cold expression and said, "So, you came to Floral Moon Brothel early in the morning just to get rid of a spy that Immerse Suiyun placed here, and at the same time, to mock him?" Immerse Xiaobao lay on the chair and said lazily, "How can I be so bored? I really came here to drink tea. Hua Shiren, Princess Lin, and Immerse Suiyun are all just along the way. I'd be a fool to believe you. Immerse Suiyun wants to marry Princess Lin, and to you?" Qinlai asked curiously. In fact, including Long Junhan and Su Zhuwei, they had always felt that those who constantly tried to send beautiful women to Immerse Xiaobao by various means were all crazy. No matter how beautiful a woman was, she would only be tortured to death by Immerse Xiaobao. Those beautiful spies that were painstakingly cultivated by various countries might be of some use if they were used elsewhere, but in front of Immerse Xiaobao, other than being killed by him using all kinds of methods, they were completely useless. Brother Suiyun is also concerned about Ai's marriage. However, I am very sorry that I cannot accept his kindness." Qinlai was obviously very used to Ai's way of speaking. He asked, "Then what do you plan to do?" Immerse Xiaobao tilted his head and thought for a moment. "Since Brother Yun is so close to I should also be concerned about him, right? He definitely doesn't want you to care about her. You plan on giving him a beauty?" Qinlai asked. Immerse Xiaobao nodded happily. "I have already chosen a candidate. Prince Ding sure is efficient." "Who did you choose?" Qinlai asked curiously. "Princess Lin?" Immerse Xiaobao. "Can you be any more perverted? On one hand, you're trying to steal someone's wife, and on the other hand, you're scheming against someone's cousin." Immerse Suiyun. "How much debt did you owe Immerse Xiaobao in your previous life?" In the next few days, Immerse Xiaobao was unusually quiet. Every day, he just took his younger brother to stroll around Nanjing City. Even the guards who had been nervously watching them gradually relaxed their vigilance. In the inn, Mo Xiaobao leisurely fed his younger brother snacks. Su Zhiruwei went out to visit the famous scholars in Jiangnan and had yet to return. Qin Lai was still acting as the guard as usual. The only thing that was not so good was Lung Juanhan's face that was getting uglier by the day. Mo Xiaobao, I can't take it anymore. On this day, Lung Junhan finally couldn't help but rush into Mo Xiaobao's room. She grabbed the collar of a certain someone who was reading leisurely and shook him. What's wrong? Mo Xiaobao elegantly raised his hand and slapped away Lung Junhan's pale claws. Young Master Lung's somewhat tender and handsome little face was pale. He looked at Mo Xiaobao and said with some grievance, "That Miss Qian wants me to elope with her." Puchi. Qin Lai, who was sitting on the side, directly spat out a mouthful of tea. He coughed earth-shatteringly and pointed at Lung Junhan, unable to speak. Lung Junhan's fair and tender appearance, compared to Mo Suiyun, didn't have the temperament to attract girls at all. Could it be that Miss Qian's maternal love was really overflowing? She actually wanted to elope with someone in just a few days. Mo Xiaobao didn't seem to be surprised. He said with a smile, "It seems that the future empress of southern Shu isn't very faithful. Mo Suiyun's taste really needs to be improved." Lung Junhan couldn't help but stomp her feet. "What should I do?" As she spoke, she stretched out her hands to Mo Xiaobao with an expression that said, "If you dare to say that you don't know, I'll strangle you to death." Mo Xiaobao tilted his head and thought for a while. "Go and tell her that you can't elope with her." "Why?" Lung Junhan asked. He always thought that Mo Xiaobao wanted Mo Suiyun to lose face at the wedding because there was no bride. Mo Xiaobao looked at him in surprise. "Do you really want to marry her? If so, it's not impossible." "I don't want to." Lung Junhan immediately shouted. He didn't want to marry any woman other than Xin. "Then that's it," Mo Xiaobao said with satisfaction. "Go and tell her that all the land under the heavens belongs to the king. If you run away with her, it will implicate the Qian family and your family. Just say that you two are not fated to be together and can't meet in this life." Originally, Lung Junhan thought that Mo Xiaobao's idea was wicked and vulgar. But when she heard that they couldn't meet in this life, her eyes immediately lit up. She nodded seriously and said, "I know. I will act well." It was really great that they couldn't meet in this life. He didn't want to see that foolish and gullible Miss Qian again. Looking at Lung Junhan's excited expression, Mo Xiaobao secretly smiled. "What a gullible fool. Do you think that I told you to hook up with Miss Qian for fun? How can we meet forever?" Therefore, student Mo Xiaobao walked further and further on the path of being sinister, vicious, and shameless. Student Mo Xiaobao, have you really not heard of the saying, "Good will be rewarded with good, evil will be punished with evil"? Prince Shiling Genom of Gojoseon is here. Outside the door, the shadow guard respectfully reported. "Shiling Genom of Gojoseon?" Mo Xiaobao blinked. Qin Lai said lightly, "Shiling Genom of Gojoseon, Lei Tingfeng, 40 years old. Shiling Regent, and Prince Yu have a feud with him for killing his father. You couldn't have forgotten, right?" Mo Xiaobao pretended to be frightened. "How could I have a feud with Shiling Genom of Gojoseon?" Qin Lai said indifferently. 5 years ago, the previous Prince Ding, who is your father, killed Lei Tingfeng's father. As the saying goes, the son must repay the father's debt." Mo Xiaobao was speechless. He definitely wouldn't tell Qin Lai that he really forgot about this matter. What feud with killing one's father? It seemed very annoying. Couldn't everyone coexist peacefully? Chapter 1150. Mo Xiaobao. With your character, not to mention that you killed his father, even if you saved his life, he would still want to kill you in the end. Prince Genom of Gojoseon of West Hill has come to visit. The guard outside the door waited for a while, but did not hear Mo Xiaobao's answer, so he had to report again. Mo Xiaobao sighed helplessly and said, "Invite Genom of Gojoseon in." Lei Tingfeng walked into the room and saw a young man lazily lying on the soft couch. He was dressed in black brocade clothes and had a face as handsome as jade. On the young man's body was a 5 or 6-year-old baby dressed in white brocade. With just a glance, Lei Tingfeng understood that this must be the real ruler of the Prince Ding mansion, Mo Xiaoyao and Yi Li's second son, Mo Yufeng, who was only 6 years old. For Mo Xiaoyao to suddenly give up the position of Prince Ding and leave with his wife, there were definitely many people in the world who were shocked. Lei Tingfeng was obviously among these people who were shocked. After the shock, there was a bit of indescribable admiration and helplessness and despair, as if they would never be able to defeat him. Mo Xiaoyao, that man used to be high and arrogant, and also fell like dust. However, he rose up at an astonishing speed and shocked the world. Then, when he was at the peak of his fame, he unexpectedly retired once again. This kind of casual and free coming and going like the wind showed the incompetence and inferiority of these people who struggled in the secular world. Jinan Palace and the Prince Ding Mansion had a father's death feud. Lei Tingfeng once thought of working hard and enduring hardships so that one day he could avenge his father and revive West Hill. But at this time, looking at the lazy and seemingly handsome young man in front of him, Lei Tingfeng only felt a burst of absurdity and ridicule. He was a man in his 40s, yet he wanted to seek revenge from a 15-year-old boy for the death of his father. Not only was it ridiculous, but Lei Tingfeng also felt powerless. It was as if everything that he had painstakingly done over the past few years was a useless joke. Mo Xiaobao stared at Lei Tingfeng for a while, then rolled his eyes and sat up. He smiled and said, "Greetings, Mr. Jinim of Gojoseon of West Hill." Lei Tingfeng was shocked, but he quickly calmed himself down. He actually lost his mind in front of this young man. He had only wanted to see how capable Mo Xiaoyao's successor was. "Greetings, Prince Ding. I'm sorry for disturbing you." Mo Xiaobao carried Mo Yufeng and placed him on his lap, smiling. "Jinim of Gojoseon is too serious. I was just bored. Jinim of Gojoseon came to visit I as soon as you arrived in Nanjing. I was very touched." Lei Tingfeng's eyes darkened, and he smiled indifferently. "I heard that Prince Ding came a few days earlier, but I came to Nanjing for the first time in my life. I was just about to ask Prince Ding where I can walk around." Having supported the overall situation of West Hill alone for a few years, Lei Tingfeng also had more the majesty and grace of a superior than when Lei Jinting was still here. Mo Xiaobao clapped his hands happily and smiled. "That's great. I was just about to find a few more people to walk around Jian and Yuxiu." Jinim of Gojoseon of West Hill visited Prince Ding and Mo Yuchen on the first day of his arrival in Nanjing, and locked himself in the room for a full hour. This matter was naturally passed to the ears of Mo Suiyun in the palace. Hearing this news, Mo Suiyun's calm and handsome face also became a little gloomy. With a deep voice, he dismissed the guard who came to report, lowered his eyes, and began to silently calculate in his heart. In the end, the 4 people who had been doing their own things in the past few days rarely gathered together. Su Zhurui frowned slightly and said, "What did you talk about with Jinim of Gojoseon of West Hill?" Qin Lai, who was sitting next to him, twitched the corner of his mouth and didn't speak. Mo Yufeng excitedly raised a small hand and said, "I know. Brother said that the steamed buns and tofu in Nanjing are very delicious. That uncle said that we can go eat together another day. Brother said that the girls in Flower Moon House are very beautiful. That uncle said that he has a few more beautiful girls in his house and can give them a brother. Brother said." Mo Yufeng's memory was very good. He didn't even have to think about it to spit out more than a dozen brothers. Obviously, Prince Ding and the spy of Jinim of Gojoseon of West Hill didn't discuss anything serious from beginning to end. It was all nonsense. Su Zhurui rubbed his eyebrows with a headache and said, "Do you want Mo Suiyun to misunderstand? What's the point of doing this?" If outsiders were told that Mo Xiaobao and Lei Tingfeng were discussing these things, no one would believe it. Mo Xiaobao looked at Su Zhurui innocently. "Brother Zhurui, didn't you say that everything has to be meaningful to do?" Even if it's fun, we can do it. I found Lei Tengfeng pleasing to the eye, so I chatted a little more. Su Jure wasn't fooled at all. He sneered and said, Lei Tengfeng is willing to come personally this time, most likely because he plans to secretly form an alliance with Mo Suiyin. If you do this to trick them, I'm afraid it won't work at all. Mo Suiyin wasn't an idiot like Mo Jingli and Mo Jingqi a few years ago. He was very clear that it was impossible for West Hill and Princeton Mansion to form an alliance. Not to mention the blood feud between Lei Tengfeng and Princeton Mansion. As long as Princeton Mansion had the slightest intention of unifying the world, West Hill would be their first enemy. Because of the terrain, Southern Chu, which was blocked by Yunlin River, would be ranked behind. Now that Princeton Mansion was at its peak, if Lei Tengfeng wanted to fight against Princeton Mansion, he could only choose to form an alliance with Mo Suiyin. Mo Xiaobao blinked. I know, I just don't like Mo Suiyin, so I plan to annoy him for a while. Anyway, I'm bored, so it's not a big deal to chat with Lei Tengfeng. Besides, it's Lei Tengfeng who came to us himself, okay? He couldn't just shut him out. Su Rui touched his nose, pondered for a moment, and nodded. I understand. Lei Tengfeng wants to create the illusion that West Hill and Princeton Mansion are close, so as to put pressure on Mo Suiyin and raise his own price at the same time. If West Hill was roped in by Princeton Mansion, then Southern Chu would be alone. Although they all knew that Princeton Mansion couldn't rope in West Hill at all. Mo Xiaobao nodded. That's right. Lei Tengfeng wants to scheme against Mo Suiyin. I'm very bored, so I did it in passing. If West Hill and Southern Chu successfully form an alliance, their alliance will only be more consolidated, and it won't be good for us, Qin Lai said in a low voice. Mo Xiaobao sighed. Who asked Dad to offend too many people? Our Princeton Mansion doesn't have good relations with people, so West Hill and Southern Chu are destined to form an alliance. Mo Suiyin and Lei Tengfeng aren't idiots. It was precisely because these two people weren't idiots that the difficulty of truly forming an alliance with them was no less than trying to kill them. But it didn't matter. In this world, it would only be more interesting if there were challenges, right? This world would be in his hands one day. Mo Xiaobao looked at the sky outside the window, his eyes filled with absolute confidence and ambition. Chapter 1151. In the blink of an eye, it was almost the day of Mo Siyun's wedding, and the envoys from various countries had almost all arrived. Other than Lei Tengfeng and Mo Xiaobao, no other country's ruler came personally. Ever since the secret talk with Lei Tengfeng, Mo Xiaobao had been unusually quiet. Even when he received the alliance agreement that Lei Tengfeng and Mo Suiyin had secretly signed, he didn't show the slightest change in expression. However, even if Mo Xiaobao obediently didn't cause any trouble, Mo Siyun's wedding was destined to become a joke because he couldn't think straight and invited this unlucky star to attend. On the first day of the wedding, a frightening piece of news spread to the palace. The future empress of Southern Chu, Mo Siyun's fiancé, actually eloped with someone on the first day of the wedding. Mo Suiyin, who received this news, broke the weasel hair brush in his hand on the spot. Speak, what exactly happened? Mo Suiyin asked coldly. The guards sent out were quite capable and returned in less than 4 hours. Reporting to your majesty, we have interrogated the emperor, Qian Residence's maid. It is said that Miss Qian met a young man surnamed Hua, who claimed to be a concubine's son from a wealthy merchant family in Guangling. The two of them were alike. Miss Qian's mood has been very bad these few days. This morning, when the maid brought water to the room, she discovered that Miss Qian had disappeared. Young man surnamed Hua? Mo Suiyin frowned. What does he look like? Is he from Guangling? The guard said bitterly, Your Majesty, I'm afraid it's a fake name. There are no wealthy merchants in Guangling who believe in Hua. Although Guangling was now the territory of the Princeton Mansion, it was too close to Southern Chu, so they were naturally familiar with it. Moreover, the surname Hua was very rare. If there was such a surname, they would naturally know about it. According to Miss Qian's maid, it was a handsome young man dressed in white who looked to be around 13 or 14 years old. He looked very handsome and obedient, making people feel that he was a good person. Fake name. Mo Suiyin frowned. If the bride really eloped with someone, then it was fine. But if someone deliberately abducted the bride at this time, then, no matter what, that woman, surnamed Qian, deserved to die. Immediately send someone to look for him. If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse. Mo Suiyun said sternly. Yes, Your Majesty. The guard's heart trembled, and he hurriedly accepted the order and retreated. Regardless of whether this Miss Qian was dead or alive, or why she had escaped from the marriage, he was afraid that even if he found her, she would not be able to survive. Reporting to the emperor, Prince Ding requests an audience. The eunuch outside the door reported. Mo Suiyun's face darkened. The person he didn't want to see the most right now was Mo Xiaobao. He said impatiently, I won't see him. Brother Suiyun. She personally came to comfort you. How can you be so cold and heartless? Outside the door, Mo Xiaobao's lazy and mocking voice rang out, making people gnash their teeth in hatred. Without waiting for Mo Suiyun to speak, Mo Xiaobao had already walked in with a face full of smiles. Seeing him like this, Mo Suiyun inexplicably thought of Mo Xiaobao's catchphrase from time to time, seeing that you're not doing well makes me satisfied. This bastard definitely came to see him make a fool of himself. What are you doing here? Mo Suiyun said angrily. Mo Xiaobao blinked innocently and said, I heard that Brother Suiyun's Empress, En, is missing. Didn't I specially come to comfort Brother Suiyun? Hey, I still have a few people I can use in Nanjing City. Do you want them to help you look for her? What if tomorrow's wedding is delayed? No need. Mo Suiyun gritted his teeth. This fellow really came to see him make a fool of himself. He actually thought that he was in a hurry to find that woman for tomorrow's wedding. Could it be that he, Mo Suiyun, had fallen so low that he had to marry a woman who had eloped with someone else? We are acquaintances after all. Don't be so polite. Mo Xiaobao said kindly. Thank you for your good intentions. Mo Suiyun gritted his teeth. Mo Xiaobao nodded generously and said with a smile, It's nothing. Mo Suiyun resisted the urge to kick someone out and whip his corpse, and said in a deep voice, I still have important matters to attend to. If Prince Ding has nothing else, please go back first. Mo Xiaobao raised his eyebrows and said, Important matters? Is the whereabouts of the Empress considered important? She's not the Empress. Mo Suiyun roared angrily. Mo Xiaobao was stunned by the roar, blinked his eyes, and said with some grievance, If that's the case, then there's nothing important. I will take my leave first. As he said that, he walked towards the door of the imperial study. Stop, Mo Suiyun said angrily. Where's that bitch? Mo Xiaobao touched his chin and said with a smile, About this. Before entering the palace, I seem to have seen her following a man out of the North City Gate. She should have gone to the Yunlan River. After passing the Yunlan River, Mo Suiyun was not in charge anymore, and the north was vast. It was very easy to hide someone. Mo Suiyun's face turned black with anger, but he quickly reacted and stared at Mo Xiaobao suspiciously. How do you know her? About this. Mo Xiaobao looked at Mo Suiyun hesitantly and said with some embarrassment, About that, I happen to know the Empress's sweetheart. Mo Yuchen, go and die for me. Mo Suiyun finally couldn't take it anymore and directly pulled out the sword that was decorated on the wall and slashed towards Mo Xiaobao. Mo Xiaobao blinked his eyes excitedly and leisurely moved to the side to avoid this obviously unskilled sword. But Mo Suiyun didn't want to give up and chased after Mo Xiaobao with the sword and slashed wildly. Mo Xiaobao didn't fight back and just smiled and moved to avoid Mo Suiyun's attack. The two slashed all the way from the imperial study to the imperial garden. The guards who heard the news originally wanted to protect the emperor, but seeing that the attacker was their emperor and the person who was being slashed looked extremely leisurely, they felt that it was more troublesome to watch. On the contrary, it was more tiring to watch than to be chopped. Under such a comparison, the guards were too embarrassed to help. Brother Suiyun, let's talk nicely. Mo Xiaobao said with a smile. Why should I talk to you? In his anger, Mo Suiyun even forgot the word that was specially used by the emperor and directly scolded. He must kill Mo Yuchen, this scourge, to get rid of evil for the world. Brother Suiyun, it's meaningless to vent your anger. It's not like I seduced that person. Everyone was horrified and revealed an expression of understanding. When they reacted, they wished they could immediately pierce their own ears. You dare to say that you didn't instruct it? Mo Suiyun sneered. Mo Xiaobao thought for a while and said, I really didn't instruct. He only suggested in the beginning, threatened in the middle, and framed in the end. I don't believe it. Go and die. Mo Suiyun sneered. Mo Xiaobao helplessly jumped into the air and flew to the opposite roof to sit down, sighing, nowadays it's really hard to be a good person. Chapter 1152. Mo Suiyun gave him an extremely cold smile. He turned around and glanced at the guards who were watching the show and said sternly, Are you all dead? Shoot him down for me. The guards naturally didn't dare to disobey the order. They hurriedly drew their bows and shot arrows like rain towards a certain person who was sitting on the roof basking in the sun. Looking at the rain of arrows shooting towards him, Mo Xiaobao jumped into the air and drew a black rainbow shadow, instantly escaping far away. Mo Xiaobao's screams could still be heard from far away. Mo Suiyun, you narrow-minded miser. Serves you right that no one wants you. The echo echoed in the air for a while. According to the estimates of the guards with good internal strength, they didn't know if the people of Nanjing City heard Prince Ding's shocking roar, but the people in the palace definitely heard it. Mo Suiyun stared at the eaves of the palace where Mo Xiaobao disappeared, his face alternating between green and purple, seeing the group of guards trembling in fear. After a long time, Mo Suiyun gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, Mo Yuchen, I will definitely kill you. After angering Mo Suiyun half to death, Mo Xiaobao suddenly felt that his entire body was more than 100 times better. As expected, if he didn't do something interesting every day, there would be no joy in life. Mo Xiaobao leisurely strolled in the palace. Although this was the palace of Southern Chu and not the back garden of the Prince Ding mansion, most of the guards in the palace already knew this young Prince Ding who could anger people to death. No one dared to come out and stop him. Moreover, with Mo Xiaobao's skills that had been tormented by Mo Xiaoyao for more than 10 years, he really didn't have anyone who could stop him. Your Highness Prince Ding. Mo Xiaobao was lying on the edge of a flower bed in the palace garden, staring blankly at a peony that was blooming beautifully in the palace garden. At this time of year, the peony could still bloom so well in a place like Jiangnan. He had to say that it was a pleasant surprise. Moreover, Glass City was located in the northwest. The flowers that could be seen were much less than Jiangnan. Mo Xiaobao only felt that the graceful and luxurious Wei Zi in front of him really suited his taste and style. He was hesitating whether or not he should steal her from the Imperial Garden and move her back to his Prince Ding Mansion's garden in Glass City. Looking back at Princess Lin, and who was coming from the other side of the garden, Mo Xiaobao turned his head back with no interest and continued to stare at the peony in front of him while silently drooling. What is your Highness Prince Ding looking at? Princess Lin, and only felt that the blue veins on her forehead were jumping. She was a great beauty, but in the eyes of Mo Yuchen, she was not as beautiful as a flower. Mo Yuchen said lightly, looking at the flowers. TSK. Jiangnan's environment was still the best. Look at the flowers. They were indeed the king of flowers. It's so gorgeous and graceful. It's really too charming. If she didn't have some sense, Princess Lin, and simply wanted to grab someone who was lying on the edge of the flower terrace and looking up, shaking him hard and roaring, Are you really okay? Being infatuated with a flower, but leaving her a great beauty aside. How did this kind of freak who looked at a dead thing like looking at a beauty, and a dead thing like looking at a beauty, and a dead thing be born? If Prince Ding likes it, Lin and asked royal brother to give it to Prince Ding. Princess Lin and gritted her teeth, wishing she could destroy the Wei Zi that was trembling slightly in the wind. Can I? Mo Xiaobao hesitated and said, Mo Suiyun is so stingy, he will definitely not agree. Princess Lin and immediately remembered the shocking call just now, and her beautiful lips couldn't help but twitch. With Royal Brother's current mood, he definitely only wanted to destroy someone's corpse. Give him such a precious Wei Zi. She was afraid that he didn't want to give a single weed in the Imperial Garden to Prince Ding. Mo Xiaobao casually bit his finger and said, but it doesn't matter. I could take it back first. When Mo Suiyun's anger subsides, I'll tell him. Princess Lin An's mouth twitched, coughing lightly, and said, Prince Linen has something to ask Prince. Can I ask Prince to give me a little bit of time? The word a little bit seemed to be squeezed out from the gaps between her teeth. Mo Xiaobao blinked his eyes and finally nodded. Standing up, he reluctantly looked at the flower in front of him and said, All right, what does Princess want to say? The two walked to the pavilion not far away and sat down. Even so, Princess Lin could still feel that someone's gaze on the garden was much more than on her. Every word and action of little Prince Mo, even his expression, was telling Princess Lin a fact. Prince is not interested in you. What made people even angrier was that he didn't deliberately show it. Instead, he naturally revealed such an intention. At least with Princess Lin An's eyesight, she couldn't see any pretense. Princess Lin secretly gritted her teeth. Although Prince Ding was one of the best in the world, no matter if it was appearance, power, or ability, but if she could choose, she definitely didn't want to marry such a man. If the previous generation's Prince Ding was the representative of a good husband, then this person in front of her was simply the synonym of a bastard. The woman who married him would definitely have 8 lifetimes of bad luck. But Princess Lin knew that if she didn't marry him, she could only marry those rich young masters in Nanjing that her imperial brother needed to rope in. Since the Chu state moved to the south, those young masters of the officials became more and more dandy. If it was said that in the early years, there were a few outstanding men who occasionally came, but these years, those who had real ability all ran to Li City. And Princess Lin didn't want to marry an ordinary dandy and spend her life in a big house in obscurity. What does Princess Lin want to say? After waiting for a moment, seeing that Princess Lin didn't speak, Mo Xiaobao raised his eyebrows and asked. Princess Lin gritted her teeth and asked in a deep voice, Lin wants to know, what is wrong with me that Prince is not willing to marry Lin? Not good. Mo Xiaobao raised his eyebrows and sized up Princess Lin a few times. Then he said with a smile, This is probably because Princess Lin is too old. Princess Lin gritted her teeth. I am only 15 years old. Mo Xiaobao nodded and said, Yes, but I said that you will only marry when you are 25 years old. At that time, you'll be 25 years old. Won't you be old? Could it be that when I am 25 years old, you will only be 15 or 16 years old? Princess Lin almost wanted to shout, but she also understood that there was nothing to say. Men and women were so unfair in this aspect. A man stood up at 30 years old, but a woman at 30 years old was already old. Princess Lin couldn't help but envy Princess Ding. Princess Ding met the most suitable person at the most suitable age, calming down the distracting thoughts in her heart. Princess Lin said, Prince should know that my imperial brother has the intention of marrying Prince Ding Mansion. Lin can promise that as long as Prince agrees, Lin will never interfere with Prince's matters in the future. No matter what kind of woman Prince wants to marry in the future, Lin will never refuse. Mo Xiaobao propped up his chin and seriously sized up Princess Lin. He shook his head with some disappointment and said, If this is the case, why should I go to Princess Lin? What's the difference with raising a useless person? What's more, if I have a girl I like in the future, wouldn't she be wronged? So you are sure that you won't like me? Princess Lin hatefully said in her heart. Although she had no feelings for Prince Ding, who was as bad as a child who hadn't grown up yet, it was still a very embarrassing thing for a woman to be ignored so naturally. Mo Xiaobao looked at Princess Lin with a smile and said, I know why Princess wants to marry me. In fact, Princess has other better choices. Princess Lin was stunned. Better choices? What better choices could she have? The Empress of a Chu state, how about it? Imo Yuchin, get out of here. Princess Lin, and was about to speak when Imo Siyun's voice came from the entrance of the Imperial Garden. Imo Suiyun, in a dragon robe, rushed over with a sword in his hand. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.